And we're live. Yay! Hey guys, how's it going? It's me, Yoko, with Michael YON.
Hello from
Yay.
Chiang Mai, Thailand.
Thailand, but you're originally from America.
Florida.
Right.
Yep. I'm
Florida?
the original Florida man.
I thought you would be
right.
like Texas or something.
No way. Well, actually, Texas is great. I love Texas.
Yeah.
Actually, I
Florida.
guess I should look in the camera. I love Texas. I'm sitting here looking at you on the screen. I should look in the camera, right?
Yeah.
But now I can't see you. I can only hear you. But that's so it's like talking to you in a closet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm from Florida originally.
And you have like a military background?
Oh yeah.
You want to talk about it, or is it a secret?
No, it's not a secret at all. I went into the Army and then went into special forces actually at a very early age. I went to selection at age 19. You could do that back then. It was during the Reagan buildup. And so we were building up the military to President Reagan was very wisely attacking the Soviet Union. And his idea on the Soviet Union was not of containment. His idea was destruction, right? And so he's the first president that had that, like, let's take them out. And so there were many parts of that. One was getting the Saudis to work with us to lower oil prices, as they just did again, and the Russians. But back then we were, because Russians depend, a lot of their currency comes from their oil, right? And so there was that, and then there was the Afghan war. That we put $5 billion into, helping to undermine the Soviets in Afghanistan, and the Saudis matched it with $5 billion, and then the Pakistanis helped in the way that Pakistanis help, and then so there was that, and we had a lot of their military pinned there, and were they had themselves pinned there, and we were helping the Mujahideen fight them, and then there was Poland started rising up in the 80s, right? Or especially in the 80s, they were rising up earlier, and so under Reagan, we started a program called QR Helpful. It was a CIA operation. I wasn't involved. I was in special forces at that time. But so the Poland aspect was another part of undermining the Soviet Union, right? And so much of the operation actually took place in West Germany, where I was stationed, and also in France was where they actually operated out of. UK, Sweden helped us smuggle in. We're actually, I wasn't that QR Helpful. That was the name of the CIA operation. It wasn't public back then, obviously. But we were smuggling in a lot of copier machines, toner, and machines were disassembled, so they would get parts of machines. And they didn't have email back then, so they had like hidden printers and all kinds of stuff, and that's how they help with propaganda. And so we helped in many ways like that, but they were not armed. We never armed the Polish. So anyway, there were so many different things going on. There was QR Helpful in Poland. There was the issues that the Russians had, Soviets had in Afghanistan, which we were pinning them, working to pin them and bleed them. And the Saudis reduced oil prices. And then President Reagan did, Star Wars and Brilliant Stars and all that. And so then the Soviets tried to match us in defense spending, and it was just this, and many, many other things. But if you add all this problem set together, the complex problem set that the Soviets faced, especially with their crumbling economy, weakened them, and the rest is history. And so actually, when I was in special forces, I can say this now, but at the time it was very secret. But the two A teams that I was on, I went to language school for German, and then another language school for Polish, right? So it's not hard to figure out where I was targeted. I was targeted to Poland. So this was very secret until only recent years. But we trained. I was in the Army for 5 years, special forces for 4, and then trained to do this mission for about 3 years, which was to parachute into Poland, back near the border with the Soviet Union, and to help wage insurgency and call in airstrikes and kill certain people and that sort of thing. So that's what I trained to do for 3 years, was just dedicated to Poland. But we never did it. Obviously, you would know all about it, and I would probably be dead. And then after I got out of the Army, I actually lived in Poland, and then started a business there, which was, as you can imagine, not exactly coincidental. And then, you know, as years unfolded, you can see I got interested in Chinese information war because it's a similar, we got something similar going now against you know, there's some of us that very much want to destroy the Chinese Communist Party, and we know we can do it. And how exactly to do it, I don't know, but we didn't exactly know how to do it to the Soviet Union either. You just keep punching. You don't know which punch is going to do it. You just keep hitting, punching, hitting their legs, you know, poison their chalice, you know, everything. And, and it, you know, eventually one of these things hits home, or really an amalgam of issues. And that's why I was in Hong Kong, right? When this latest fighting started in June of 2019, I was on an airplane within 2 weeks. I said, that's it. Or maybe, I'm not sure. And then I jumped on the airplane and flew to Hong Kong and met Andy, by the way. He was one of the very first people I met. Thank you. And then from there I spent, well, within a few weeks, I could tell it was probably an insurgency, but certainly by July, that was when I started calling it an insurgency, because it was, you know, insurgency is something that I studied on the academic level quite a lot when I was a Green Beret, right? And then I went off to wars like Iraq, Afghanistan. I spent years in different insurgencies, Nepal, Philippines. You know, I was in many different insurgencies, right? So insurgency is something I can talk about on a PhD level. It's the one thing I can talk about on that level. And so when I went to Hong Kong in June of 2019, and I started looking for symptoms like, what is this? Are these just protests? Is this just civil? Is this just civil unrest, which can be serious? Civil unrest can overthrow governments. You know, I mean, that's not to diminish that. It's like, you know, the common cold does kill people, you know, but then within not very long, like when they broke into the LegCo, the Legislative Council, which is like their, you know, their Capitol building, really, their equivalent. And on July 1st, I went in. I was in there when they broke into the LegCo. I remember. I was in with them, and I was live streaming actually until my camera shut off because of loss of signal in there. But anyway, so that was a symptom of insurgency, but I was unclear actually. I thought, is this a false flag? How did they just break into LegCo without armed resistance by the police? Because if you tried that at the Diet in Tokyo, or you tried that in a Capitol building in the United States or British Parliament, there's going to be a firefight. You know, you're not going to be able to break in and take it over. So that made me suspicious. I'm like, was this real, or was this some kind of staged thing? Hard to tell. And, yeah, at the time. Now I strongly believe it was completely authentic. But at the time I was like, I don't know about what just happened. What did I just witness here? You know, I mean, and I was in the middle of it. I wasn't witnessing on TV. I was like inside, you know, making videos, and I was like, wow, they're spray painting the walls inside the basically
what's happening.
Like what you know, and we're not in a firefight. And I was thinking at any moment the police are going to swarm this place and start killing everybody, you know. And then I was, you know, looking for places for cover and that sort of thing. I mean, we're gonna get trapped anyway. But nothing happened except we left, and then some tear gas and stuff. But anyway, and then as July unfolded, I kept seeing more and more symptoms of actual insurgency. And then finally I started to say, actually, these are not protests. I mean, protests happen within insurgencies, but this is actually an insurgency. And at first, a lot of people didn't get it. The people that have followed my work for many years know that if I actually say something like that, you can buy stock in it. I have a very good track record, and so now it's pretty obvious now for people that have been. It took a few minutes for some. I told some, I was like, come over to Hong Kong with me, and I'll just take you around and I'll just shut up. You look, you know, you tell me. But it has to be somebody that knows what they're looking at, like special forces guys or ex-CIA guys or something that really have actually done that in real life or seen it, been in the middle of it. And then it's pretty obvious. It's like, you know, if a doctor comes in, you know, some doctors, if they've been a doctor for 30 or 40 years or a nurse, they can just walk in and go smell the room and look at you and go, yep, he's got cancer. You know what I mean? I don't even need the test. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And if you've been around insurgency long enough too, you can start to look, and you can very quickly pick up on it. And because there are, you know, clear symptoms if you know what you're looking for, but there's also a lot of noise, right? And so, but now we've got something bigger going on, as you know, this virus. But this could be the black swan. I call it the commie virus, like the kamikaze. You know, and actually some Hong Kongers have started calling it that too. But the problem is we get hit with it too. It's not like, you know, the commie virus just takes out the CCP, whether it will or not, it's unknown to me. But I very much hope that this undermines the Chinese Communist Party to the point where something happens internally. But we don't know.
Yeah.
It's all part of a big fight.
Yeah, Chinese people can be angry, you know, for letting this happen. Like they are not going to save Chinese citizens. And also right now, the problem that I see is the WHO and the Ethiopian guy, you know.
Oh my God. What's his name?
Like a puppet of China.
Tregar or something. What's his name? Trados or something like that.
Tedros or something.
Tedros. No, what was that guy's name? What was that guy's name on the Tedros, or was, you know, the guys, it was one of those fantasy films, that ugly little guy. He's like,
oh,
never mind. Anyway, he reminds me of that guy. He's like a little evil character. Yeah. He's clearly in the pocket of CCP. You know, they've only just now called a pandemic. Keep in mind, in January, I was still in Hong Kong. And then they kicked me out. It was in the news. You may have seen it on February 5th. I got deported. Actually, I was coming back in. I was actually coming back in, and then they
you got
did not let me back in. Right.
Yeah.
Which I was surprised they let me stay that long, especially after I got in front of one of their police chief's face, and I was like, "Did you see that video?" And I won't. Did you see
when
the video
you were getting deported?
No. The video of me having a confrontation with one of the police chiefs in the streets in Hong Kong on New Year's.
On New Year's? Maybe I did.
It went totally.
Questions?
I wasn't asking questions. I can say what I said, but you know, you got Japanese readers and they might get upset. But you can just look up. You can look up the video, just like my name, Michael Yon, and Bradley Wright was the name of the police chief. He's a British guy, and so he's a police chief of the Mongkok station, right? And he's walking down the street. It's getting 11 o'clock or midnight or something. And I'm out there and I'm like, there's that guy right there, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, he's trying to show that he owns the street.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, I've spent years in insurgencies and I'm like, whoa, this is an opportunity to get a shot in. I can't believe that he's so stupid. Well, I mean, he doesn't realize who's in the crowd, which is me. And I'm like, this is it. There's cameras everywhere. There's cameras everywhere. This is a made for Hollywood moment. Yeah. And I've got, of course, I'm American. I got American accents, and he's British, right? He's a British policeman on the
yes.
So this is just like perfect. So I was like, look at the British traitor, the British traitor. And I'm like, you know, I'm coming at him with this American accent. I'm like, this son of a bitch is going to have to take the bait. It is, he cannot possibly avoid taking this bait. And I'm like, the British traitor, you're a traitor. And he's like, and he took the bait and he started, he comes at me, right? He comes at me. He's got his hand on his pistol. All kinds of people are videotaping it, right? He comes right at me. He comes at my face, right? He comes, so we're this close, right? He's this close. And he's like, he just played right into it like this was a movie script. He's like, calm down, calm down. You can see the video. It went completely viral in Hong Kong. Hong Kongers love it. And I was like, this is where I get really beat up and thrown in jail, but that's okay. It's worth it. And I'm like, you're an effing traitor. You sold out to the Communist Party. He's like, calm down. And I'm just doing my job. I was like, wow. He said, I'm just doing my job. I can't even make this up. Like a Nazi, right? He actually said that. And all these people are catching it on video live. And so it was streaming out, you know, and so I was like, I can't believe. And then he puts then he tries to put his hand on my arm, and I went, get your fucking hands off of me. And I slapped back at him, and then he starts running away down the road. It's all on video. You can see it. I was like, you know, when I slapped back at him, I thought, now I'm gonna die, right? But it's all gonna be on television, and it's gonna hurt them so bad. So I get some broken bones or something, but you know, but they didn't. They actually left, and I was like, get out of here, you effing C, you know, and all this stuff. You can see the video, and it was a very hard shot on them. And actually, I got a lot more inside information on him from.
Wow.
Anyway, it worked out. It was a target of opportunity. But these sorts of things, now the British government, I've been, you know, giving them a lot of information. Anyway, but now they're talking about looking into sanctions as well into Hong Kong. And so, I mean, you know, and of course, I've debriefed people on Senator Rick Scott. I'm from Florida. My two senators are very anti-CCP.
Oh,
Rick
nice.
Scott, yeah, Rick Scott and Marco Rubio. Both of them are very, they're very anti-CCP. So I've given both of their staffs a lot of information, actually.
Oh, good.
And so, in fact, I briefed them on teleconference like this. Not Scott's just telephone and that sort of thing, and emails, but with Rubio's, you know, like this. And so, so it's very important to get. I mean, I got great senators. Let's face it. We only get 2 senators per state, and we got 2 winners, and we got a winner governor. And our governor in Florida is a winner too. Maybe he'll run for president. Anyway. So yeah, I get excited because I see blood in the water on Chinese Communist Party. You know what I mean? I don't know. You can't get overconfident because maybe they'll actually double down and continue to exist, but they're weakened. They're weakened. And think about what's happening now with Taiwan standing up. Of course, Taiwanese are, as you know, incredibly courageous people. And Hong Kong, unbelievable. So many Americans are like, don't they understand the People's Liberation Army can just roll right in? I'm like, they understand. The army barracks is like 50 feet away from us. You know, it's like they're throwing Molotov. Look at the video on the top of my Facebook. You see them throwing the Molotov cocktails on the video on the top. I made that video, right? I made the video. As you can see, it was right there. They were throwing Molotov. The Hong Kongers, I love them, man. They were throwing Molotov cocktails at the police right beside the Chinese Communist barracks on Hong Kong Island. So I kept telling Americans, I was like, not only do they get it, they realize like what 17 or 18 Chinese army bases in Hong Kong. And you know, and we do realize they just pulled a huge number of troops to the border of Hong Kong. We actually do get it. That's why I had satellite gear sent in, and I was going to go live in the jungle if they go hard. I wasn't going to leave. I wasn't going to leave. I knew they would let all the Western journalists and writers leave or get rid of you. I don't think they would have killed many. They probably would have gotten rid of them, you know, send home or whatever. But I was just going to stay in the jungle. I was going to do it like a Japanese soldier. You know what I mean? Like Hiro. I was going to go a total Hiro Onada on them. You know? Did you ever read his book? You know Hiro Onada?
Oh,
you know
Hiro? Yeah.
I know that I say it like it.
He kept hiding, not knowing that the war
40
was
years
over.
or something in Philippines. So, actually, I went down to Philippines to go to the island that he stayed on just to see it, and then I couldn't get. When I got there, something bad happened, and I couldn't actually get. I'm going to go back and try again, but I wanted to see. I wanted to see like I wanted to see the caves and stuff where he lived at. You know, actually, you know. As you know, America and Japan were blood enemies there for a while, but a lot of Americans like me, we respected people like Hiro Onada who are like, I'm not going to surrender. You know what I mean? Right. That's badass, man. He deserves some respect.
Such a warrior.
Like, he talked about all the problems he had, like ants filling up his gun barrel, his rifle barrel. Like ants, because the ants would, for some reason, the ants would put sand into any like little hole like that. Yeah. So he said that he had to hang his rifle up in a tree. Otherwise, the ants would fill up his rifle barrel, and he never wanted to plug his rifle barrel for various reasons. And then the rats would want to eat. Like he was greasing his not greasing, but you know, maintaining his rifle strap and stuff with like coconut oil, which you know, it turns out the rats like to eat coconut oil. So he's like, he had to find a different way to do it. He's like, how do I keep? And then when he finally came out, like 40 years later, like his weapon was like perfectly clean and like past inspection and everything. Yeah, man. Anyway, so that's why I was in Hong Kong. I wasn't there as a journalist. It's pretty obvious while I was there, why I was there, and why I'm still Chinese.
You want to go back, but you can't. So.
We can totally beat Chinese Communist Party. We remember. There was a time you were just a baby then, or if you were even born. When were you born? I don't even know. But I mean, you probably weren't even born yet. But anyway, when the Chinese Communist, when the Soviet Union, there was a time. Now people look at it, they're like, oh, everybody knew the Soviet Union was going to break. And I'm like, no, they didn't. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. In fact, everybody was betting against it. And you could see the CIA for years are like, we didn't even see it coming, which is funny because when I was about 22 or 23, my sister came to visit me when I was a Green Beret over in Germany, in Bad Tolz in Germany, right? And she came to visit, and and I told her to go visit the wall because it won't be there when you come back, right? And she wrote that in her diary, right? And so, because she was kind of surprised that I was saying that the Soviet Union was going to fall apart. And remember, I was only 22 or 23, right? And I was not in CIA or anything like that. And so later when it fell and everybody's like, we didn't see it coming. I'm like, how could you not see that coming? That was like grossly obvious. You know what I mean? And I'm not a Russian specialist. I don't read the papers, you know. I was mostly studying Poland and East and West Germany. That was mostly what I was looking at hard, and a little bit Czechoslovakia and stuff, but mostly Poland and East Germany and West Germany, and then branching from there. And I was like, wow, they're quite unstable based on everything I've taught, all these great schools I go to and all these old Green Berets around me. I'm just like, they're going to fall apart, aren't they? You know what I mean? And yeah. And so
do you see any similarity right now with China?
Oh yeah. I mean, look at the, I mean, a lot of people are like, no, China will never do it because China is this or that. And I'm like, hold on, Rambo. Remember, that's what the Soviet Union. Now they rework their memories. Now they're like, nah, we saw it coming. It's like, no. Go back to microfiche, go back to the Wayback Machine and look at the old articles. It would be like, surprise, everybody's surprised, you know, that this all fell apart. Maybe not Reagan, because Reagan was, he was on him, man. He was getting on him. And that's one thing I like about Trump is he's getting on China. Actually, Trump is the only president so far that's really stood up to China. But, you know, he hasn't, for me, like I'm a super hawk on China, not China. Chinese people are fine. But when it comes to Chinese Communist Party, I'm a super hawk. I'm like, I'm way more of a hawk than Trump is. To me, he's like a barnyard chicken on China compared to me. But he's much more serious than any president in the past.
Yes.
But he needs to be harder. But okay, he's definitely, he hurt them a great deal. You know, a lot of people talk about the trade war, but let me tell you, there's been it's not a trade war. We are at war. They've been at war, as you know, with Japan and the United States for many years. Look, I've written 3 books on
That's your book.
Yeah.
What a coincidence. I have them too.
In Chinese. Oh yeah. I've written 3 books on that was when I was more young and handsome in Iraq. I've written 3 books on they're all in Japanese on Chinese information war. And I was all right, yeah.
Japanese.
That's right. The first chapter is like on the cover in Japan. This my American friends, when they see it, they're like, wow, Japanese sure write a lot on the front cover, don't they? I'm like, in the back cover.
Like wait for it.
Yeah, exactly. And so but you know, we're increasingly in a position that okay, now think about the precarious situation that the Chinese Communist Party is in now. They have their promises for generations have been security and prosperity. Security has now been proven to be not there. And prosperity, well, look what just happened. Right now, their economy has just been smashed. I mean, at least one leg is now broken at minimum. Now, think about what's coming. You've seen what's happened in Iran and Italy, and it's coming in Spain now. It's about to hit Germany and France and UK and Denmark, and United States is going to get smashed, and Canada. I mean, so think about this. Chinese economy has been devastated at home, and the supply chain is now very damaged, and or at least it'll take a big restart, which take a long time. And all that supply chain is now empty because we've already got everything we're gonna, you know what I mean? The warehouses are emptying out, right? And so now the United States and European and other economies are about to be devastated. So who's going to buy the market for all their products? Even if China can get all their factories going again quickly, what happened to the market? The market is going to be super soft if the United States and that we're going to go into well, I mean, I would say I'm not an economist, but it doesn't take Warren Buffett to realize that the world economy is about to get kneecapped. I mean, we could go into more than a recession. People keep saying, "Oh, it could be a recession," and
it's serious.
I think it's much more serious because when the things that are unfolding. Keep in mind, in January, when I was still in Hong Kong, I was already saying the things I'm telling you now. I was saying this virus, I was publishing this virus is the one thing that can take out President Trump as president very readily. And people are like, that's crazy. But you were right on a lot of other things like the Iraq Civil War and the Taliban stuff and Thailand stuff and Korea, Japan relations breaking down on the comfort women issue. And I was like, yeah. I studied the comfort women issue. Yeah, right.
Which we are really thankful for.
And since about 2000, thank you. I mean, you Japanese helped me a lot. And then since 2014, I've been saying to you, I mean, you and I have communicated about it a lot, is that that Korean Japanese relation. Remember in 2014, we met in Tokyo and talked about this. Korean Japanese relations can break down just because of this. It's the Korean Japanese relations are being targeted, and China is actually the one behind this this monster, this information war. And I've been telling Americans, watch, China is going to blame jumped off. China is going to blame Japan and the United States for the virus. And here they are. They already started blaming the United States. I'm like, they're like, how do you know these things? I like, because I grew up hunting, you know, I hunt alligators and stuff when I was a kid, and rabbits and birds and stuff. I watch behavior. You know what I mean? Like the Taliban agreement about 3 weeks ago or so. What was it? A month ago, or maybe 3 weeks. I didn't even read the agreement. I came on, I did a live feed like this. I was like, the agreement's, it's not going to hold. It's going to break down. And people are like, did you read the agreement? And I'm like, no, I didn't. And they're like, well, how do you know? You didn't read it. I'm like, I've been all over Afghanistan. I was out with the Taliban. Trust me, it is absolutely going to break down. It broke down in 3 days. It broke down in 3 days. And so it broke. So they signed it, what, maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago. It literally broke down 3 days later, and the Taliban started attacking again. It's just, it's like when you're an alligator hunter, you know what the alligator does. No matter what the alligator says, alligators do what alligators do. You know what I mean? And the Chinese Communist Party is like that too. Likewise with Iran, you know, the rocket strikes, the ballistic missile strikes on our base about 2 months ago, right when it happened. And Trump comes out and goes, you know, we're not even gonna, you know, they're going to back off now, and they're just getting it out of their system or something. Like you maybe saw what he said. And I immediately came on live stream and I was like, nope, Iran will not stop. You don't, and everybody again's like, oh, but His Majesty Trump has said it. And I'm like, you know, I love how Trump's been doing a lot of things on border security and all that. He's simply wrong on Iran. He's simply wrong on the Taliban. He's wrong on this disease. He's not right on everything. But so anyway, so just a few days ago, they did strike again, just as I said they would. It's not over. Iran will not stop striking until we are smashing the hell out of them, and then they'll stop. But even while this disease is unfolding in Iran, still it's Shia, it's Sadr, it's Mahdi army people doing it. It looks like, actually, who are in Iraq, but they're sponsored by Iran, right? So they just hit one of our bases, killed 2 American soldiers and 1 British about 4 or 5 days ago, right? So it's not over. I mean, and the thing instead of studying every little tiny thing, like what did the Chinese say? It's like, it doesn't matter, because I know what they did. They lied, right? So whatever agreement we make with them on trade or whatever, or IP, intellectual property, any agreements that we make on all these different things, with Confucius Institutes not being remember, in 2014, I was out way over my skis saying Confucius Institute should be kicked out of the United States, lock, stock, and barrel. One time I was on the phone a couple of years ago. I was talking with one of my nieces, American niece, and I was like, how's school going? She's like, oh, good, I'm taking Chinese. And I was like, okay, that's cool. And I was like, you ever think about taking maybe Japanese? And she's like, oh, Japanese is cool. I love Japanese. All the friends watching Japanese stuff. I'm like, why don't you study Japanese then? She's like, because Chinese. And I'm like, I understand why you should study Chinese. Actually, it's, you know, but I said, wait a minute. So we're on the phone and I'm starting to Google around. I'm typing in, I'm like looking at her school. And I'm like,
oh no.
I was like, Confucius Institute. I was like, hey, did they happen to offer you a scholarship to China? And she's like, how'd you know? And I was like, hey, put your sister on the phone. I mean, my sister. put your mother on the phone. Her mother's my sister. I was like, put your mother on the phone. I'm like, Susan. No. I'm not going to have a spy in my family. If I have to fly back to the United States and have a come to Jesus moment, she is absolutely not taking that scholarship, period. And so I sent them that FBI counterintelligence video, Game of Thrones. Have you seen it? I published it like 50 times. I should publish it when we get offline. Game of Thrones. It's this guy. It's American. It's a true story. He's studying languages, and he goes off to China, and there's all the hot Chinese girls and all this stuff. And then they're like, hey, why don't you write something for us? And then they start getting him to write, and and that sort of thing. And they start paying him for it. And the next thing you know, they establish the relationship with him, and he's like a very low-witted guy, and actually he doesn't seem that low-witted. I mean, but he's not sophisticated enough to realize that he just stepped into a well-oiled trap. And so eventually they're like, his handlers are like, and the FBI did a good movie on this. You should watch it, called Game of Pawns, not Game of Thrones, Game of Pawns, Game of Pawns. Right. And so they're like, why don't you try to get a job at the Department of State? And so he goes and takes the test at the Department of State, and he fails the test. So he goes back to his handlers. This is on the FBI counterintelligence thing. And so, and he failed the test. And so his handlers are like, well, the Department of State test is very difficult, but have you considered maybe another organization like the Central Intelligence Agency? And he's like, no, but okay. So that's what he did. So he applies to CIA, right? Takes the test. Then he goes back to, CIA to take the polygraph, and he came back with like $30,000 in a money belt or something, and gave it to his dad to pay off his house. Okay, good money trail, thanks. And so and his dad's like, "Where'd you get the money?" He's like, "I've been teaching English." And I'm sure you have, son. And that's what a great English class. And so and so he goes to take the polygraph, and then he kind of spazzes out on the polygraph, and he's like, "Oh, I don't want to be here anymore." And the guy, the FBI guy giving the polygraph, he's like, you realize, there's no turning back now. I mean, you basically come into CIA to get a job, So anyway, they arrest him, and then he went to prison. So when he was interviewed for the counterintelligence film by FBI, he's in there. He's like, yeah, I got in over my head. You should watch it, Game of Pawns. When Polly Yu and Hong Kong had the huge attack and all that, I went in after the attack when it was still, IEDs all over the place. And I say IEDs, not explosive. They were Molotovs. There was thousands of Molotovs and stuff. There were still bows and arrows, one of the cops got hit in the leg, if you remember. But I went in there and I was live streaming, and there was a Confucius Institute there in Polly Yu in Hong Kong. I was like, look at this, Eric. I was with my partner, Eric. I was like, look at this, Eric. We're in Confucius Institute at Polly Yu in Hong Kong. Wow. This is like spy embassy. You know what I mean? In Polly Yu. And then we stayed there for hours. We were going through all these classes. We were out there all night, and we get way up there somewhere, and we find how do you pronounce it? I can never pronounce it. Huawei, their little place up there. They had one of their facilities up there as well. And so, I mean, that's obviously another part of the spy organization. And so it just goes on and on and on and on. Man, I could talk about it for days. I just did. Hong
Kong is one thing, and I was wondering about what you think about North Korea. Are you catching up with the news there? That North Korea is kind of like suspicious right now, that they say the number of the infected people are low, but Kim Jong-un seems to be kind of, I don't know, like there's a rumor that he might be infected and so on. And his sister comes in the picture, sending a letter to South Korea and so on.
Well, if he is, and if it's serious, we might know pretty soon when we just stop seeing him, you know. And you know, and age seems to be the _1 factor on mortality with this disease at this point, but also comorbidities like other diseases. One of the scientists are saying now, one of the dangers also is obesity. So if that,
really?
I mean, that might. I'm not a scientist. I'm just watching like this is all I study 7 days a week. I'm watching this virus and the surrounding situation, because this is the biggest thing in our lifetime easily. I mean, this is the way it's going now. This will be more significant to humankind than World War II. You know what I mean? At the way that it's going now, this could be I mean, I'm the only one saying this, and I know it sounds crazy again, but I have a very good track record. When I'm not predicting this is going to happen, but this could be the most profound thing that's ever happened to humanity. That's, you know, like in a finite encapsulated thing, you know what I mean? Not like the advent of religion or something, but I mean, but insofar as like some thing like a virus, like the bubonic plague or the 1918 flu or whatever. There's so many other plagues, and you know, the epidemics and pandemics are just, that's background noise in humanity. But then there's some that are obviously quite special, and then there's some wars that are bigger than others. But this, the way it's going now, could collapse the global economy into severe issues, and this would obviously make many places around the world susceptible to civil wars or wars of opportunity. Like a lot of my Hong Kong and Taiwanese friends have been, and Japanese as well, have been saying, do you think that the Chinese will use this as an opportunity to attack Taiwan? And I've been saying no for now. However, maybe if the United States is sufficiently weakened, and China is getting back on its feet while we're now weakened, because you know the peak, this peak is happening at different times in different places, obviously, and so maybe, I mean, that could be their moment of opportunity. I don't know what the weather will be like when, you know, when they're you know, because the weather can make a big difference on their ability to invade, and they could, because you know, you can't look at these things with pure logic and arrive at an answer, because these things, big decisions like this, are often made with some leader just goes, let's do it, you know, or we'll go to the, you know, to the fortune teller, you know, I mean, literally battles and wars are fought based on what fortune tellers and priests tell people, you know. I even wrote a dispatch about that. I was in one, well, it was deadly actually in Bangkok in 2014. I think 5 people were killed. It was a big shootout, and believe it or not, the reason that happened was Thaksin and his sister went to the fortune teller in Myanmar, and they went to the fortune teller's like, you got to do all these things at the government house. You got to bring some soil from Myanmar. You got to cover the eyes of the Propram. You know what a Propram is? It's the four-headed god.
Oh, okay.
You got to cover its eyes so it can't see what you have to do, and you got to do these other things. So you got to do all this. Otherwise, you'll never be able to return to Thailand, right? And so they literally had a big firefight. I think 5 people were killed, and it was, you know, you could see the photos I was, you know, I made, and then I published a dispatch called something like Battle of the Fortune Teller or something like that. And it was just like, this fortune teller said, you know, you got to take it by this certain date. What was that date? Maybe it was in April. I remember it was really hot. And it was like, you got to take it by this certain date, or if you don't. So they literally had the firefight the night before and the day before. Wow. And then they didn't take it. They didn't retake it. They were unable. The fence was too strong. And then sure enough, Thaksin's sister lost power, and he has never come back. You know, I mean, I don't know if it's the fortune teller, but you know, but what I'm saying is, you can't look at these big situations and go, well, they'll do this because it makes sense.
Right.
Sometimes it'll just be like, and you know, out of bed, not be like out on the Lion King. You know, the guy breaks the thing and says, okay, now,
right. while China was like, going through the hard times with coronavirus, though, they kept sending their ships to Senkaku Islands, like, our territory. And they,
oh yeah,
it's like,
absolutely.
it's to us, it's an act of war. So, and like while people are suffering inside of China, they kept sending their ships and to claim that it's their territory, but it's our territory. And just like you said, like when, America is weak, they might actually come invade us first.
Absolutely. And when you and I met in 2014, I believe, in Tokyo, right? We were talking about this sort of thing back then, how, Japan needs to throw out Article 9, toss Article 9, throw it in the shredder, throw it out the window, whatever. And the Japanese won't throw it out the window, but throw it in the shredder. And so, but get rid of Article 9 and make it fashionable again to be in the Japanese military and stop calling it self-defense force. You know what I mean? Call it the Japanese Navy and call it the Japanese Army and the Japanese Air Force. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we want to.
And just do it. Who's going to stop you? It's like, ask. This is a thing. As you know, Japan and Thailand as well, where I live, have somewhat paternal societies. In other words, we need permission to do something. Whereas I'm American, and we're more like, need permission? Hell, we're taking permission. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Right. It's one in particular subsect of Americans called Scot-Irish culture. If you know, that's the one I come from. That's the one that's the one that goes and stakes flags on the moon. There's a lot of cultures in America, but there's some that are more aggressive than others. And this is the one that's like, we're going to take permission. And it's not like we would if we could. We're just like, we can and we will. And that's the way the Japanese spirit needs to come back and evoke confidence of your ancestors and the can-do. And we never, it makes some of my American friends crazy when I say this. I'm like, we never should have gone to war with Japan. That was the stupidest thing ever. We should have been allies with Japan, and we should have smashed those communists together. I mean, the only reason we ended up in a war with Japan is because it's a long story, but we ended up in a war with Japan when we should have been tagged.
I blame those Democrats.
Yeah, it was Democrats, wasn't it? I mean, it was a strategic error that almost no American sees. I would say 1 out of 1,000 might see it.
Like people didn't want to go into war against us. So, and the conservative people were, going against Democrats' idea that to go into war against Japan. So that's what history teaches.
Well, there was, as in many of these situations, there was not any one reason. There was an amalgam of reasons, right? There were so many reasons. One was, of course, just geopolitical competition.
Yeah.
I mean, as you know, until the black ships came, Japan was just sitting here being Japan out there alone in the Pacific, right? We're like a lot of like we're like Bhutan, but on an island, right? And so and a lot of people were like that, right? And then we came with the black ships, and Perry came, and then he came back the next year, and huff and puff and blow your door down type stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, exactly. And Japanese, as you know, you had internal fighting about that. Like some were like, no, we need to open up. It's either now, we either do it like the virus, we either do it now somewhat on our terms, or we do it completely on their terms later. Yeah. They got better weapons, they got better ships. We don't even know what their numbers are like. You know what I mean? But it's obviously more than we got. You know what I mean? And then then Japan went through this unbelievable transformation from like very sophisticated in a lot of ways, but technologically obviously super primitive. But when it came to sophistication and philosophical sophistication, that sort of thing, super high. And so the Japanese then send out the students all over the world and study everything, as the Chinese have been doing actually, and come back and bring all these skills back. And the next thing you know, by the 1890s, Japan's coming in, becoming a powerhouse. And that's like only 30, 40 years after opening up, right? And it's just like, well, of course, the United States, after, we came in the 1850s and then we had our Civil War, right, from 1861 to 1865. So we were a little busy with that. And then after that was over, then we became expansionist again, right? And so and then you know, Japan was like, yeah, this is quite serious. And so then obviously, well, we know what happened in Korea. You know, a lot of I could talk about that for days, and so could you. We both could. But I mean, but then, you know, there was the Japanese war with Russia, which, you know, you guys beat the Russians, which all of a sudden scared every, like President Roosevelt. He was quite happy because, you know, he loved Japanese. I got some of his letters, by the way. Got some of his letters. Like I think there were letters to his son, right? Oh no. You're talking about the other one. You're talking about
okay.
You're talking about the idiot Roosevelt. I'm talking about the good one. I'm talking about the one that built our national park, the guy that used to like the art and stuff. You know, he was like my kind of Roosevelt. He was the first, and he really loved Japanese. And he's like, because as you know, when it came to the Russian-Japan war, Roosevelt was like, he was like, this could become a world war. There hadn't been a world war yet, right? There had not been one. So the Great War hadn't come yet. That was still far off. That was still maybe 14 years later or something, 13. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But I mean, so they, wow. He's like, this could be a world war. We got to get Japanese and Russians to the table. But remember, when Japanese sneak attacked the Russians, everybody in the United States and UK or Britain were all like, bully, look, Japanese smoked their butts. You know what I mean? And it was like, I found a headline on one of the British newspapers. It was like something like, this attack will go down in the annals of naval history or something. And they were like celebrating the Japanese attack on the Russians. Now, of course, when Japanese did that at Pearl Harbor and down in Malaysia and Singapore and Australia, and everybody's like, oh my God, the dirty Japanese. But, you know, but when it came to doing it to the Russians, we're like, good job. But then it scared them too, because they're like, wait a minute, those little non-Christians, because Japanese were small back then, beat the big white Christian Russians. So that kind of freaked out some people. And see, that's one thing. That's one thing that the Chinese have been very good about playing Americans off against. The Chinese will come up and go, we're Christians, and only, you know, like one person out of a million in Japan is Christian, less than 1% now, right? But I mean, but so that was a really serious selling point for Chinese, especially like in the 30s, for instance, to go and tour across America and say, look, we're Christians, help us against, you know, and like, yeah, you're Christians and Japanese aren't Christians. So rice bowl Christians, you know? And so there was, and so that, never underestimate that. Almost no Japanese I've ever talked with has ever heard of manifest destiny, right?
Oh, actually, people don't know.
I think something that I wrote was actually in a Japanese book recently about I wrote something about manifest destiny, and the Japanese author saw it wherever I published it, and he said, "Can I put that in one of my books?" And then I gave him more information. I was like, you can't understand American behavior. This is why so many people misunderstand the things that we do, including Americans, because, you know, we all have our little software that we run on, right? And you know, something happens and subroutine clicks in, right? Like when 9/11 happened, so many people were like, America's going to back down now. And I was like, are you kidding? I was thinking about joining special forces again. I was like, and it was like that fast. I was like, no, that's not the thing to do. I mean, I ended up in the wars for years, but I mean, but the point is, like, you think we're going to back down? We're going to come and kill you. You know what I mean? It's like, some of those cowards might back down, but the rest of us got guns and we got an army and we're coming for you. You know what I mean? So, I mean, subroutine kicks in, you know what I mean? And so to understand American behavior, you must understand manifest destiny. You know, I've made this myself, so I've never seen it described other than by me, but there's basically a manifest destiny triangle. There's like, there's three components of it. One is religion, right? Basically proselytizing Christianity. That's one part of the triangle. Another part is just economics, like making money. Expansion is, you know, expanding. Go west, young man. And another part is geopolitics. That's why, you know, so like Japan is highly resistant to Christianity. So, and I found something that one missionary wrote, what was back 1800s, I think it was. I don't remember when was it. Anyway, he was like, the Japanese language is like designed by Satan to resist Christianity. You know what I mean? So
Really?
that was just, it was something like that. It was, that's not the exact words, but it was something like that.
But
And the
like
Chinese
that.
are like, the Chinese are like, we'll become Christians, you know? And so, and they, you know, and a lot of them are really authentic and honestly are Christians, but also a lot of them realize we can play this. We can play Americans off Japanese like this. And so they still do it. Remember that book? What was his name? I put it on my social media several times. I think I put it in one of my books. It was a book from 1938 from a guy named Vincent Williams, right? It's called Behind the News in China. What was that? Behind the News in China. And he wrote, he was a journalist in China. He was American, I believe, as I recall. And he wrote something like, what is it? He wrote something about Americans never believe anything that the Chinese say unless they're talking bad about Japanese. And then we just believe everything they say. And he was like confounded by it. He's like, and he had to put this sentence in. I'm not something like, I'm not, some people who read this will think it's just a defense of Japanese, but I'm just saying. And what he was clearly defending Japanese, but you know, to do that would be, well, they're not Christians. How can you defend them? And so, you know, and so he's trying to get out here and go, let me slide this through. You believe everything the Chinese, you don't believe a thing they say until they talk bad about Japanese. You're like, yeah, it's the truth. It's the Gell-Mann effect. You know what Gell-Mann effect is?
No.
Gell-Mann's a physicist, right? And the Gell-Mann effect is, you know, when you read something in the news and you go, well, this is nonsense. I know about this. I know about Confucius Institutes and so doesn't know what they're talking about. And you go, okay, you know, I know about the comfort women issue because I've been in countries all over Asia and United States and Australia and Japan, everywhere studying this. Right.
Yeah.
And so, and I see at least 95% of the articles are wrong about it, like grossly wrong. So then you'll be like, and every time they write about something that I honestly know about, like the fighting in Hong Kong, they're actually actually the journalists who are in the fighting typically are actually quite accurate. I'm happy in Hong Kong. I'm very happy to say that. But often on the Iraq War, where I was there, you know, 2004 to 11, off and on, and same with Afghanistan, it'll just be way off. So you read about something you know about, and you're like, that's off. I don't believe anything you say. And then they turn the page to something you don't know about, like oil futures or something. And you're like, wow, look at this. Here's a problem here. You know what I mean? You just believe it.
Right.
It's called the Gell-Mann effect. It's basically you just turn the page and now you totally believe it again. And it's in the same. It's called remember the Gell-Mann effect, because it hits all of us. You got to be super careful and guard against the Gell-Mann effect, because it is just Gell-Mann amnesia, right? Gell-Mann amnesia. Look it up. And you'll see people do it all the time. Like, I don't trust the media. I don't trust this. I don't trust that. Hey, look at this story in the New York Times. I was like, you told me you don't believe anything from the New York Times.
That happens here a lot.
Oh yeah. Like the New York Times has been way off on the comfort women issue, right? They're very off. And I know that because I know that issue better than any of their journalists do, apparently. And but when the New York Times did a biography of me, it was incredibly accurate. It was almost it was like, I was like, wow, that was the most accurate article ever written about me. There's been a few more that are of that caliber now, but not a lot. And like there's been probably thousands of articles and stuff written about me. And I would say in the top 5 was New York Times, if not number 1 on accuracy. I was like, wow, there's only one word that's wrong in here, and that's it. And that was argued for me. It's wrong. They called me a journalist, and I was like, hey, I told you I'm not a journalist.
You're a writer,
whatever. But otherwise, I was like, you really did your homework, man. You're amazing. And didn't take me on any of my word, checked out every sentence like a good journalist should. That's the type of journalist to get high respect. You know what I mean? Like, here, I'll tell you my side of the story. I expect you to check everything. And they did too. And, but it was actually made me look very good, made me look better than I make myself look. I was like, it's extremely accurate.
Sometimes they do a good job.
I was like, that was very accurate. Made me look good. Super duper accurate. But yeah, but but on other things, sometimes the New York Times would write about the Iraq War, and I'll be like, well, that's actually quite accurate. Like this one guy named Rich Oppel that worked for New York Times. I was out on some of the same missions he was on, and with the same unit in Mosul, and everything that he wrote, I was like, well, this guy's quite accurate. There's a couple things I disagree with him on, but that's not on accuracy. It was just on what we think might happen next. And I don't remember which one of us was right or wrong, or maybe we were both wrong. Maybe we were both right. I don't know. But there was some disagreements, but they were like trivial stuff that like, you know what I mean? Like, where's this virus going to go? I don't know. I can tell you one thing, it's not going to be good. It's going to be very bad. I know that much. But so, yeah, Gell-Mann Effect. But, you know, the New York Times often is extremely accurate. Then they turn around on comfort women issue, and they're just completely part of the problem. Of course, they're all.
I think that happens because they focus on Asahi partnered. They focus on the human rights. So from the human rights aspect, it's all correct and it's all good. But as for historical aspect, it's wrong. You know, so like New York Times or Asahi Shimbun, like the partner here in Japan. They can be like Asahi Shimbun here. They are always wrong about historical disputes, but when it comes to the human rights issues against China, they're always right. so that's something that sucks. But we take the advantage of them to write about China. Yeah.
You know, Epoch Times. I like to read their stuff, and people will say, "Oh, they do." They'll say they do a lot of propaganda, and I'm like, I don't know, because I don't read all their stuff. I can't, you know, it's too much. I mean, they're like huge, you know what I mean? You'd have to like stop everything you're doing, and then you could still only take 10%. But I will say that the things that they've written about me or things that I know about have been accurate,
And then you believe.
But I can't extrapolate from that and say, and people go, well, they're Falun Gong. And I'm like, you know what? So what? When was the last time Falun Gong blew up somebody? You know what I'm saying? I don't care, man. So what? You know, you know how many religious groups have helped me out? You know, it's like it drives some of my American friends crazy when I'm like, hey, man, stop talking bad about every single Muslim in the world. You know what I mean? Muslims treated me really good in many countries. Man, I spent years with Muslims. I'm not a Muslim. You know what I'm saying? But they're not all evil people. You know what I mean? Just as good as they help me get fat.
They generalize too much.
Because without and likewise, a lot of people do that to Christians. I'm like, Christian, if we have a disaster in the United States, you know who's going to be helping the most? It's going to be church groups. It's not going to be the government. The government comes in and screws everything up, and then they're late, right? They're late, and then they screw things up. It comes down to us. The same with Japanese. Like when you guys had the tsunami, I came over. I was in Afghanistan when that happened. I'd jump on an airplane. I came straight to Japan, right? And Japanese were like, I was like, wow, I love these people. Unbelievable. They're just looking out for each other like you know, like it's one big family. And then, of course, when that's over, you go back to fighting each other again. And it's like we do that too. You know, it's like we're going to be friends for a day. Tomorrow we're going to fight again. But actually, that's quite healthy. Actually, that's very healthy though, because it keeps us all on our toes. We have to. None of us know everything. You know what I mean? We all know our little part. You know, and so we have to fight and argue. But
speaking of which, though, you just reminded me that you were talking about President Trump in your Facebook live stream, and that you were saying how you want to talk about how Trump administration is handling the coronavirus, but you can't criticize him because of some people.
It was only no, I do criticize him. All the time.
But like, I want to know. I want to know the content. Of what you criticize.
But at the same time, while I'm going, but I love the way he stood up to China. And I love the way he's finally saying, despite everybody labeling him a racist on the immigration issues, look, Japan can't just let everybody in the door, or you'll end up with, look, as you know, not all fish will work in the same aquarium. You ever see one of those fish charts? You know what I mean? If you're going to buy an aquarium and you're like, I want to get all these pretty fish, and then you put the wrong fish in there and it killed all your other fish. You're like, where'd all my fish go? And why is that fish so fat? There's like one fish is now very fat, and there's blood and fins and scales everywhere. You know, it's like likewise. And so we have to look, you have, you know, some problems in Japan from letting certain groups in, right? As we know. And some groups fit in very well together. Like, for instance, Filipinos get along. Like, everywhere I go, Filipinos get along. It's like, oh, every time I see Filipinos, I'm like, oh, cool, Filipinos. I love to talk with them, you know. They just get along. And I see Filipinos in every country. I'm in Afghanistan, and there's loads of Filipinos. I'm like, I see you guys everywhere. I was in Iraq, loads of Filipinos everywhere I go. I'm like, the things that you can count on are Coke, Pepsi, Michael Jackson, and Filipinos. And Germans, if there's something dangerous and crazy to do. And but you know, but when, like, there's always Filipinos somewhere. And but Filipinos can get along with just about everybody. And then there's some groups that can't get along with almost anybody. And then there's a lot of us, and then most of us are somewhere in the spectrum in between. Like, I can get along with most people, but not everybody. You know what I mean? And then Japanese are like that too, but you want to have your own space. You know what I mean? And so it's like, no, leave us alone in Japan land. You know what I mean? And that's the way you need to really defend your and when I say this, it sounds so racist, but in fact, I'm saying Japan needs to defend Japan, and that means it needs to defend Japan being Japanese, because Japan is a very fine and great Japan. And if it starts getting mixed up, it's going to be nothing but hell. You know what I mean? And it needs to, Japanese needs to defend that core. It's very important. Japan's not America. And people, you know, a lot of people try to, you know, compare different, you know, such and such. I'm like, America is an anomaly. There's no country like America. You know what I mean? We're like Heinz 57. You know what I mean? We're like a dog with 57 ingredients. Only it's like 570 ingredients, right? I mean, we got everything. We got huge amounts of Japanese, Chinese, Koreans, people from all over South America. You know the deal. And so, and obviously a lot of Native Americans and that sort of thing. So we're like an experiment from God or something, you know what I mean?
What happens when you mix everybody?
And somehow it's working more or less, generally speaking, quite well, and quite well on the big picture. But one of the things I'm concerned about with this virus, and something I've been talking about since, you know, the 90s, is that because I've traveled all over the United States. I'm from Florida, but I've lived in North Carolina twice, and Ohio, Massachusetts. I went to school in California twice, you know, and so I've seen 48 states. I haven't been to Alaska and some other state, but mostly I've seen, we've got a lot of different cultures. The United States is actually incredibly complex. A lot of people divide it down into white people, black people, and they don't even know we got like more Hispanics than black people, right? They don't even know that, right? And I'm like, it's a lot more complex than that. And firstly, there's like, you know, 100 species of white people, and and the same with blacks. There's all kinds, and then we're all mixed in, and then there's all kinds of different sorts of Hispanics. It's not like Hispanics are a block; they're not, and like white people are not a block. Like the Scott Irish type that I am. We're the ones that will never give up our guns. You know what I mean? And there's no way to talk our guns out of our hands. It's just making us suspicious. You know, Japanese never say that, by the way. The only ones that do it are British and Germans. And well, not the only ones, but especially, and it's funny because, you know, ich spreche Deutsch. I speak German, and I lived in Germany for 4 Jahre. I lived there for 4 years, right? And I speak English well enough that I can understand British, right? And so, and there's two groups of people that are always coming up to us and going, you know, I don't know. It's like within the first hour of a conversation, they have to drift it over to guns to see how you feel about guns. And I'm like, I'm like, you're British. There's two species of people that should never tell somebody like me to give up our guns. 3 actually. And that's British, German, and everybody else, but especially British and Germans. I mean, I'm like, talk to the hand before it becomes a fist. Leave us alone. You know what I mean? There's a reason we got guns, and the reason we got guns is you, You know what I mean? And it's deeply embedded in our culture. You know what I mean? It's like, it's like super embedded. You know what I mean? It's like so embedded that you will not get it out. And likewise with this virus issue now, if we, that we have potential to go into civil unrest or even another civil war in the United States. But I've likened it since the 90s. The example I use is I thought of it when I was sitting by a restaurant in North Carolina one day by this river in the Nantahala Gorge out in North Carolina, Western North Carolina. You know, I was looking at this whitewater river and these people are coming down on boats. And I said to a friend, I'm like, the United States is like that river. As long as there's enough water, you'll be able to slide right over the top of all these rocks. But as soon as the economy dries up in the United States, all these rocks that are in our culture, our meta culture, they're going to show themselves, and we could literally go into another civil war. I can see it. I can smell it. I can sense it. And I've been all over this country, you know, I've been in the army which is also a little, its own little petri dish of the greater America. You know what I mean? And so, and you can just see it. If the economy is strong and everything's good, most people are going to be happy enough that we don't go into something like that because why you rock the boat? I got a new boat. You know what I mean? So, you know, but if we go into another depression, we could literally be in a civil war. And Americans, because this is not Japan. United States is not Japan. Japan could go into a depression, and I don't think there would be a civil war in Japan. I don't think that there would.
No,
I think
I
that you would just find other stuff to do until you got the economy going again. You know, you'd be like, take up some kind of new hobby or something, you know, and a lot of Americans like me would do that. But we also realize that there are others that are going to come and they're going to try to take everything you got. And they're going to like, every time we have some social meltdown for this reason or that, the police are not there to help. 911, it doesn't matter if you call police, they're not coming. You're on your own. Or like Katrina, when you had the earthquake and then the tsunami and then Fukushima, you guys were all helping each other like mad, really helping each other like crazy. Nobody needed guns. You don't need guns. You're Japanese. But in America, when Katrina happened in New Orleans, there was rapes and murders and robberies. And it's just like, you know, it just goes to complete road warrior stuff. So, I mean, we got different cultures. So if I were Japanese, if I were Japanese and I lived in Japan, I would be like, why do I need a gun? It's just something else I have to clean all the time. You know what I mean? Although I like to shoot just as a sport, but I'm not addicted to it. But I mean, but it's, you know, but it's just, I like the bicycle too. You know what I'm saying? But you know what I'm saying? It's not some, but if I were Japanese living in Japan, the only reason I would want a gun would be, well, just in case like China invades, I'm going to fight. But I don't need one against Japanese. You know what I mean? I don't like, if I have an argument with somebody, I'll be like, whatever. I don't like that guy. You know what I mean?
Plus, like,
it's not going to be a shootout. You know what I mean? It's like, but in the United States, we've got subcultures that are fantastically violent, and they're like epic violence, you know, and not to mention the cultural issues. For instance, we really don't trust the government, you know, and look at what the government. Oh, speaking of which, you asked about Trump. Do you want me to say?
Like, what's the criticism about? Like, what do you think he can do better? Because like our administration is doing a poor job. That they are following Western nations, and like after they go through the same thing, then finally we can do something, even though it's too late.
Well, look at Hong Kongers. Hong Kongers, their government's doing a terrible job too. Carrie Lam is missing in action like normal. But the Hong Kongers themselves are similar to Japanese in many ways, insofar as you've got cultural discipline. You've got cultural discipline. Like they fight each other a lot too. But then when it comes time, we got a common enemy. Okay, we're gonna yeah, exactly. We're gonna be the beehive right now. You know, okay, the beehive works, right? I call it hiving. Some people call it hiving as well, but it's like, Japan could be a really great beehive, and so can Scott Irish people. I've published many times that the more I've learned about Japanese culture, I'm like, actually, that's quite similar to Scott Irish in many, many ways. Like we have a lot of cultural similarities that you probably don't know, especially if you look at other Americans and you don't realize that we have very distinct subcultures. We may all look white or black or Hispanic, but within those we have, and you can't tell them apart unless you know what you're looking for. Like if you look like me and you say, oh, that guy's pro Second Amendment and he doesn't trust the government, there's a high chance he's Scott Irish. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Actually, most of our Apollo astronauts were Scott Irish, like Armstrong. Oh, he's from the Armstrong clan. Oh yeah. And so, I mean, it's straight up. I mean, these are the thing about Scott Irish is they can be some of the most high functioning people in the world. And then within that same culture, it's like low life, loser, drunk wife beaters. You know what I mean? And so we got it all over the spectrum, man. We got these super high achiever astronaut, physicists,
adrenaline,
ultra doctors, presidents, Medal of Honor recipients galore. And then we got a bunch of drunk, worthless wife beaters doing drugs all the time. So, I mean, we're all over the board. We're not like Japanese where you got more, more, let's say, you're more quality control. I don't know, so our quality control is all over the board, so you never know which is like life is Scott Irish or like a box of chocolates. And so, but when it comes to Trump, he's way behind. He's trying to sell himself, of course, as being way ahead because way back on about February 1st or so, it was February 1st. When did he say they're cutting off travel to from Hubei province to the United States? When was that? Oh, let me go back. Cultural discipline. Japanese have a lot. So even if your government is really screwed up, you're going to be squared away. Japanese as a people will be squared away. You just have to deal with this monstrosity thing. Likewise, with Hong Kongers, the reason that they've been flattening the curve on this disease is clearly because of they're highly intelligent, like Japanese, and they can make the hive work when they need it to. So everybody's wearing masks. Everybody's wearing masks, being very careful.
Wash our hands. Everything.
They're flattening this curve on most of us are going to get the disease probably at some point. But they're flattening the curve. And so, and I'm quite certain that the Taiwanese can do that as well. Taiwanese, Japanese, of course, and Hong Kongers actually, but Hong Kong is complex too. There's many cultures. And Singaporeans are doing okay. The government, actually, weirdly, the Singaporean government was way ahead of this. And South Koreans actually have done pretty good as well, but they're still getting hit too hard. And but anyway, but our government, when it comes to President Trump, he's trying to sell himself off as, look, I've cut down travel from Hubei province. I'm like, what difference does it make? They're just traveling over to Hong Kong and then traveling straight in. I mean, so you take a train to the airport at Hong Kong from China, which is, it's like the bullet train. You know what I mean? And they come over, and it's like, hello, or they fly to Canada first or wherever, and like, for instance, exchange students from China going to Australia, they're like, so Australia was like, okay, you can't come in. So they just went to Bali and went on vacation for a week. And then they went back to school. So I mean, they're like, so that's why, a lot of people are like, oh, Indonesia's not showing cases. I'm like, have you been to Indonesia? They're not going to show cases because tourism is very important to them and other things as well. They're going to hide it. That's just, I love Indonesia. I've been there many times, but at the same time, let's face it, they're going to hide it. And President Trump, so he did that one travel ban, but it's not a ban. It was just lipstick on a pig is what we call it. Right. And then likewise, what he's just done with Europe, which should have gone into effect last night, right? On the travel ban from, but it's way too late. In fact, after after he did that, I went on Expedia, right? And I was like, okay, let's book a ticket from Milano. Have you been to Milano, Italy? So let's book a ticket from Milano to Washington. And there was about how many different airlines were doing it? It was Air France, Delta, United Airlines, KLM, and about 5 or 10 more flying direct flights from Milano to Washington, D.C. Milano in northern Italy is the epicenter of this disease in Italy, in Europe, thus in Europe. And you could fly directly from nonstop to Washington, D.C. So what did I do? So I went to Expedia, you know, the website Expedia. So I'm like, okay, let's book a flight. I booked it, but I didn't pay for it. So I didn't actually take it, obviously, because I'm not in Milano. So I was like, okay, I'll get a rental car with that. Got that. All right, let me get a hotel. So naturally, I took the Watergate Hotel. You know, the Watergate, you know what I'm talking about?
Oh,
anyway.
Watergate.
Yeah. And the Watergate, it's the hotel. It's the one they broke into, right? So, and that hotel's expensive. It's like $2,000 or something a night and something like that. And I was like, holy smokes. And so, and I was like, okay, I got all the way up to the last part, except I didn't buy it, of course. But I was like, so there it is. All these, there's a long list of flights coming direct. So he did this on, you know, made this announcement, and then didn't cut off United Kingdom. It's useless. So you just get on a train and go to Heathrow and fly from Heathrow. It's too easy. It's lipstick on a pig. And likewise, when it comes to the state of emergency, I've been warning loud and clear, as loudly as I'm saying it now, get food now. In January. In January, I was saying, get food now. And in January, you can see, look at my interview on the Jordan Harbinger show, which ran in February, but we did the interview in late January. So we did a podcast, right? Yeah. And so he's got the transcript on his website. Yeah, Jordan Harbinger show. Jordan Harbinger. And you can see in late January, I'm saying this is the one thing that can cost President Trump the election. I'm saying that in January. You know, stock up on food now. The virus can have earth-shattering implications. There will be the world you knew before 2020, the world during 2020, and the world after 2020. These are going to be 3 different worlds. You know what I mean? The world that we're about to go through will probably be the event of our lifetime. Hopefully nothing will be worse. And I mean, on the global picture. But so he's done these things, and then we allowed the virus to continue to come in. And I've been saying since early February, so we should close all schools and all flights right now, close all internet. And people are like, you'll destroy the economy. I'm like, listen, here's the deal. That's going to happen at this rate. Don't you know how logarithmic stuff? Luckily, I mean, I've read about, you know, since I was like 8 or 9 years old, I got infatuated with physics and chemistry and stuff. And then, you know, and I've read just stacks of books on biological warfare, and, you know, so I have, you know, respectable math skills. Right. And so when I look at this in January, and I'm watching it over from Hong Kong, I'm like, wow, it looks like it's got a high R naught number, you know, transmissibility. I wasn't coming in flat footed. A lot of people are just like starting to learn these terms. I'm like, these are terms I was reading about when I was like 15 years old. You know what I mean? It's like, so for me, when it happened, you remember that tsunami that hit Indonesia and hit, you know, Thailand and everything. And it was huge. It killed about 200,000 people. And there's video of Japanese going, get off the beach, because all the water's going out, right? Oh, yes. All the water's going out. It's like, wow, this is cool. And they're just walking back, following the water. And the Japanese were like running out, get out of here. You know, Japanese were like, duh. I feel like that, you know, I feel like it's Monty Python, the killer rabbit. You know, it's like the water's going out. It means it's coming in. And everybody's like, you're crazy. You know, did you see some of the people weren't even listening to the Japanese? And I'm like, you're just going to die because you don't know. It's that simple. And likewise with the food. So since now President Trump just declared the emergency, of course, and now all the shelves have gone out, and, you know, and luckily I do live streams every day. Right. Yeah. And luckily a lot of the people that come on my live streams have been saying, oh, thanks to you, I've stocked up and this sort of thing. And others, I'm getting all these messages today like, look, there's people price gouging, and I saw a fight today at a Walmart, and I'm getting loaded of messages like that today. And they're angry. And I was like, why are you angry? You should be angry at yourself. That you even come and send me a message that you're complaining that people are price gouging proves that you're just not paying attention to anything I've been saying since January. Your cupboard should be filled with food right now. You should have plenty of food. You should have plenty of water. You should have plenty, you should have plenty of ability to filter water. Your water may go out. Your electricity may go out. And people are like, oh, electricity will never go out. And I'm like, whatever, man. Okay. One of my nieces, she's Thai. She's an exchange student. She's studying to become a doctor in Canada, right? I've been telling my Thai family, I'm like, everybody prepare. So I got a lot of them prepared. It took me a while to like wake them up because they're like Americans. A lot of Americans are like, don't worry, be happy. I'm like, no. You don't need to worry, but we're going shopping again. You know what I mean? And finally I've got them all on board, except for my one niece off in Canada. And now she's sending messages today like, I can't get any food. They're all in our I'm like, well, whatever. You're young. It's not going to kill you to go hungry. You know what I mean? This is a lesson you're going to learn. This is a lesson you're going to learn through hunger. It's better to not learn it through hunger, especially if the shelves are empty for a long. My feeling is that you're still going to have a chance to stock up because we haven't been hit with the serious thing yet. Right now, we've just had the president announce a state of emergency and the shelves blew out, right? But but keep in mind how this is going right now. The shelves have blown out right now because people suddenly like, oh, actually, this is serious, isn't it? Yes, it is serious. And but we still have our supply lines open. Our roads are still open, and everything's still being produced. And so you still have a chance to stock up. But as the peak starts to ripple across the United States, you could get to the point, and same could happen in Japan. You get to the point where actually you can't get more food now. You really can get to that point. You really can get to the point where your water is actually shut off. You actually can, and people are like, well, how can a virus shut off the water and electricity? Well, actually it happens a lot because, you know, epidemics and pandemics actually are very common. They're happening all the time. There's always pandemics and epidemics going on, just like there's always lightning storms around the world, you know, but they're usually just not this big and this profound. But when they do happen, if they're large enough, they will start shutting down infrastructure because the people that work in the electric plant don't go to work. The people that work in the airlines don't go to work, or the flights there's so many different layers that can, that's why people keep saying, should I take my vacation to Indonesia? I'm like, no, you're crazy. Look at all the points of failure that can happen in this. Points of failure are airline just stops because there's not enough passengers. So they just make a financial reason to stop. Or the pilots and stewardesses, flight crews and all that, they stop. They're like, you know, I'm not going to do this anymore. People are coughing all over the place, you know, so they stop. Or it could be the airports themselves, employees there stop. Or it could be the receiving country or the country that they're flying out of, right? It could be, there's all these different points of failure that you fly away from Japan or America off to Indonesia, and now you're stuck in Indonesia and you could be stuck for months. You can be stuck for months and you don't know anybody, you know, or maybe you do.
Speak the language.
Luckily I make friends easily. So I'd just be like going and like, hey, I'm hungry. And I know how to hunt, man. I'll be out in the jungle hunting monkeys or something. But I mean, you know, but a lot of people can't do that. You know what I mean? And, but so what do I think about what Trump has done? I think he's completely mishandled it, but he's not the only one. It's very clear. He's not the only one. The CDC, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and, you know, DOD and so many others have completely failed. We've had since 1918 to build a strategic mask reserve, right? And we don't have a strategic mask. We've got like 1% of the masks that we need in the United States. 1%. This is unbelievable. We could easily, just with that one little thing, how much would 1 billion masks actually cost to keep them always in stock? You know, some in all 50 states in the 3 or 4 territories, right? How much would that cost? You know, to keep very little. I mean, we've already got the warehouses and stuff. You know, it's not like you have to buy warehouses for them. And so now, instead, we have our people. I wonder if any Japanese have done this. So now we've got numerous medical experts, including the Surgeon General. He's a Navy guy named Jerome Adams. He's got this big old Navy hat on his little head. He's out in front of the White House going, and he's tweeting. He's like, you know, what do you say? Seriously, people, or something like that. Stop buying masks. I'm like, you're the Surgeon General, man. You're like a admiral or something in the Navy or whatever your rank is. And I don't know what his rank is. And he's tweeting like he's 16 years old. You know what I mean? For starters. And secondly, he's coming on television and going, you know, they don't work anyway. They can be more dangerous. I'm like, no, they actually definitely for sure 100% work. And then they parse their words going, well, it won't stop you from getting infected. No, they won't stop you from getting infected, but they help. Like, you know, all this body armor I wear when I go to combat, you know, all the years I spend in firefights and bombings and people killed all around me. You know, sometimes they get hit in the body armor and they live, you know, they get knocked down, or they get hit in the helmet and they get knocked out. Every time somebody gets shot in the helmet, every time they get knocked out. And then they come back up. What happened? You got shot in the helmet, dude. And my head hurts. Yeah, well, it's okay. All right, let's go. It's like, you know, but the body armor works, right? but sometimes it doesn't work, you know, and sometimes, you know, you get, like I saw one guy get shot in the heart. It went right between his plates, right? Likewise with these masks. They're not always going to work, but they, you know, I just saw when I was talking, I have the camera light on. I just saw a spit go out, right? And if we were talking, I would have just spit on you. I'm sorry. But luckily you're in Japan and I'm in Thailand. So, I mean, but the point is if I had a mask on when I did that, I don't wear these crappy masks. But, you know, I'm a prepper, what we call a prepper in America, right? So I already had all the masks I needed. I didn't have to buy any. I didn't have to buy any masks. I did buy some. I bought 600 masks. And I gave 400 out to people in Hong Kong, and I gave 200 to people in Thailand, right? Wow. So I bought them. I was like, they're not listening to me. So I just bought a bunch of masks myself and gave it to them. I was like, you can thank me later or whatever. But I don't even wear that kind. I wear a different kind. Wherever it's
a special one.
Yeah, that's why you can see the red on my face, the rosacea. I was wearing it earlier. But the point is they do work. Are they foolproof? Of course not. But do they work? Absolutely. And just like hand washing works. Will hand washing save you? No. Should you wash your hands? Hello. Yes. It's like, you know, it's the same with the mask. But so then they come out and tell us the masks don't work, and they can even be more dangerous, right? Right. They're saying that because we have a strategic mask shortage. So, and why don't you just come out and say to Americans the truth? The truth is not President Trump, but President Trump and Obama and Bush and Clinton and everybody before him, all the way back to 1918, have all failed and not made a strategic mask reserve. All of them. Everybody, the CDC, all of them have all failed. And why doesn't the World Health Organization? Utter failure. And I, just Mr. Scott Irish American Florida man, got all the masks I need for at least a year. And I'm not hoarding because I've had them for years because I knew this shit was coming. You know what I mean? It's obvious. The infectious disease experts have been warning since before we were born. I've warning from the 1800s. Who was it? That was years ago. I read it in a book. There's some doctor or whatever. He's like, you know, there's going to be a disease that is going to come and it's going to be worse than the bubonic plague, you know, which, you know, 1918, of course, the Spanish flu, which unknown where it really came. Then infectious disease experts have warned for many years that it could come from wet markets in China. They have specifically warned about wet markets in China. They've warned about this since I think before you and I were born. They've been warning about it a long time because everyone thought China is like China is like a laboratory for this stuff, you know, and you know, like putting civets with chickens or whatever right next to each other. The virologists do, and they're like, these are the worst two kinds of animals to put right next to each other. It's like the civets are right on top of the chickens or whatever, you know. And it's like, you know, it's like they're like, you know, that's like putting, you know, too much plutonium together, you know. It's like, you know, and now, you know, and you know, that sort of thing. And so And so there we have it. And President Trump has not been taking it seriously. He's out there shaking hands and like, I don't need to get tested. And so he's playing into people's confirmation bias. If you know what I mean, you know, confirmation bias is when, you know, whatever you believe, if somebody says that, you'll be like, you'll just accept it because it confirms your bias already. Right. And so people that are like, oh, it's just like the flu. And President Trump's like, it's like the flu. He's actually said similar things. I'm like, how many people did you just kill with that little statement? Because they're just going to be like, His Majesty President Trump just said it's like the flu. And so why do I need it? I've had the flu. Everybody in my family's had the flu. It's like, this is not the flu. This is not the flu at all. And it's probably going to kill many millions of people. There's a high probability it's going to kill tens of millions of people. It literally could kill more people than World War II. It's that serious. And
because I think in Italy, a lot of people, like 10,000 people are infected and 1,000 already died from the coronavirus. So it's really,
well, let's see. I didn't check the statistics since 24 hours. So I'm going to guess that today, there's probably 13 or 1,400 dead because their doubling seems to be, or maybe 1,300. I'm going to say they're doubling. It looks to be about every 4 to 5 days. And, you know, and this is that exponential function that, you know, when I was on the streets of Hong Kong watching this and going, wow, this is just like all those scientists have been warning me about ever since I was 8 years old. You know, here it is. You know what I mean? So for me, I'm like, I feel like the Japanese on the beach, you know, oh, get off the beach. Everybody, they've told us, the old people have warned us. The old people told us 1,000 times that the water goes out. The water's coming back and it's coming really hard, you know? And it's like the old people have warned us what happens when you get this high R naught and you got this doubling like this and it's got a, you know, especially high mortality rate. We're going to get smoked. And so we are. And you're very young and healthy. I hope you're taking your vitamin D. Well, I don't have it here. I hope you're taking your vitamin D. Are you taking your vitamin D?
I have a supplement.
Vitamin D is helpful, actually. And sunshine helps actually as well. Getting a lot of, actually, there's a lot of things that we're not going to have a vaccine anytime soon, period. We don't even have a vaccine for AIDS yet. And AIDS has killed 39 people. There's no vaccine for SARS. When did SARS roll through? And SARS is this. You know, SARS was like a hiccup. It wasn't even that, you know. But luckily it was a warm-up for many people. It was a warm-up. It was a warm-up for the Hong Kongers. Without too much cost. About what 300 died in Hong Kong, I think. But it probably reduced the death rate on this one. Now keep in mind, to get fixated on the mortality from this virus, I just call it the Wuhan virus or the China plague. I'm not going to call it COVID-19. I'll call it Xi's disease. Xi's disease is the larger disease that invades Tibet, threatens, you know, Taiwan, is putting Uyghurs in concentration camps, taking Inner Mongolia or whatever you want to call it. They call it Inner Mongolia. You know, it's like, you know, all these other things, right? Threatening Hong Kong. And that's Xi's disease that allowed this from the wet markets to now be released upon the world. And this subset, this virus, I call it the Wuhan virus, or some people call it that, or, you know, the China plague. I'm not going to let them slip out of that and rename it through the WHO, right? Well, it's going to be quite serious, and we're all going to see it soon. But as the hospitals fill up, and like Italy's reached that point now, if not yet, probably today. Now, and they're already doing triage. In other words, they're already, like, some patients are like, well, we're not going to treat. We don't have the. We're doing. We don't have the ability to treat everybody, and therefore, she's 80 years old. She's not going to get treated. So they're being left to die. Already this is happening. When we get to this point of triage, now what happens when you get into a car accident or bicycle accident or cut yourself badly,
or heart attack, or
you got all these other things, you're not going to be able to get treated because and nurses and doctors will start to die, or they're going to be sick, be home with their kids or whatever. So it's going to be other diseases that people would have survived or accidents that they survived. Those won't even probably be counted into this, right? Because but all part of that, or the damage to the economy, which obviously also has effects on what crime rate in the United States goes up, and all kinds all sorts of things will lead to more issues. So there's more to this than just the mortality surrounding the disease itself. There's also all the things that come with it. Like, for instance, dialysis. We've got almost 500,000 people, I think, in the United States on dialysis, and I was talking with somebody that works in a dialysis business yesterday, right? And he's like, he has 16 chairs. If you know how it works, they come in and sit in these chairs and they get dialysis. Now, people that are on dialysis already have repressed immune systems, right? And he's like, their company will not even allow them to wear masks because first, and even though he bought his own mask in a really proper cover mask, his company's like, you're gonna scare the customers. I mean, because the guys, and we're talking on the phone. He's like, it's unbelievable because I'm gonna get sick, and then my other nurses and helpers are gonna get sick, and because we're sometimes all 16 of our chairs are filled up, people doing dialysis, and sooner or later we're going to have to shut the entire clinic, and all the dialysis clinics around America are going to have to shut. So all these people dialysis, they're going to die. They're going to die. They're going to die, or they're going to go to dialysis centers that are open, and they're going to face infection, or they're going to get infected, and then they're going to die. Or we'll see how many actually survive. So if you're on dialysis right now, you need to really be thinking it through really super, super quick, like on doing dialysis at home if possible. And how many people can afford that? I don't know. How much does it cost for a dialysis machine? I don't know.
I have no idea.
Likewise with respirators. Now China's offering respirators to Italy because, China manufactures so much of our medical gear, and 80 or 85% of Americans' medicines, and including the APIs, the active pharmaceutical ingredients, come from China. So China has already threatened us about a week ago, about cutting up. They threatened us in that CCP way, which was an obvious threat for people like me who watch and study them. But for others, they'll go others that watched it will be like, did they just threaten us? But for us, studying will be like, they just basically pointed a gun in our face. That's what they did. I mean, they basically threatened to cut off all of our pharmaceuticals, which would be now again. Let's recurse back to this. Now, in the long term, China. This another reason why I think the CCP is in massive peril. In addition to what's just happened, is now Americans like me, and a lot of your medicines come from there as well, are going to say, we are not going to allow this anymore. Medicines are not going to be made in China. Only 7% of American masks are made in America. 7%. And now we need more masks than we've ever needed by factors, many. And so all these critical components to electronics or computers, and a lot of them are critical actually to the U.S. military that are made in China. A lot of us are like, what kind of government got us into this? U.S. government. So let's go back to Gell-Mann Effect, or Gell-Mann amnesia. We have to remember that this is the government that has just serially screwed up. And I don't mean Trump. I mean, like, historically.
Like, everyone.
Like, oh my gosh, the Japanese hit us at Pearl Harbor. We didn't see it coming. I'm like, it was in the newspapers on the headline the Sunday before. And I was in the newspapers before, and people are like, oh, that's fake. I'm like, it's not fake, man. People are like, man, you're really good with Photoshop. I'm like, that's not Photoshop. It was on the headlines of newspapers across America on the Sunday before Pearl Harbor. It's like, Japanese may attack over the weekend. Yep. They attacked. In the 1920s, what was that naval officer's name? I've forgotten his name. He was like, the Japanese will probably attack us at Pearl Harbor, and they'll probably do it on a Sunday. And he was laying out all this stuff, you know, and that was like in the 20s, right? Like 24 years in advance. And he's like, you know, because Sunday, because like, because, you know, everybody will be at church or they'll be at home, or the ones that drink, they're not drinking on, they're not on base. You know what I mean? So you either got them off at church, they're off with their families, or the drunks are off in the bars, you know, they're not on their ships or whatever, you know what I mean? And sure enough, attacked on a Sunday, and you know what I mean? But likewise, the policy that even led that happening was just incredibly faulty. So it was like a lot of Americans won't go back beyond that, because the more you actually learn about that part, you go, oh, actually, we induced that attack. It was a defensive attack, not an offensive attack. That was a best defense is offense attack. And only a few actually get that. But and it's just been Korea, Vietnam. Like, what was the Vietnam War about? I get the domino effect, and I'm totally into fighting communists. That's why I have my Hill Tribe Aka coffee around here somewhere, because they used to, you know, I drink Aka coffee. It's from the Hill Tribe. They used to grow opium, and they used opium to fund their communist insurgency here in Thailand. And then the United States, you know, Green Berets and CIA came in and helped, and the king of Thailand, King Rama IX, he's incredible, man. He actually helped them to start raising coffee, so they would stop raising opium to fund their war. That's why I drink so much of their coffee. I'm like, every time I drink their coffee, I'm like, I'm fighting communism. First of all, I like coffee, and second, I like Aka people too, and their coffee is really good. And I'm like, fighting communism, and I'm fighting opium. Yeah, it's like everything at once. It's like a feel good coffee.
Awesome.
You know, so but our government, they haven't always screwed up. They've done a lot of great things too. But it's untrue to say they've always screwed up. But it is true to say that the epic screw ups sometimes are of monumental consequence. And for instance, not preparing for this disease, little things that were so cheap, like preparing masks. How much would 1 billion masks have cost if we bought, say, a contract for 1 billion of them? I would say, let's just argue, and we would get them for, I don't know, 20 cents each. It seems like a high price, but let's just say that, you know, 200 million bucks, whatever. And if you buy them from American companies, the money's staying within the United States anyway. Likewise with Japan, you should be making this stuff within Japan, or in a country that's highly friendly to Japan and stable, not China, you know. And so this is long-term effects on the Chinese Communist Party is pulling out business. And of course, the war that was dressed up like a trade war before is already starting to help that. Now we got the virus, and now you got millions of Americans waking up to, wait a minute, you mean I might not have medicine soon, because this medicine I need to live, or my family or my mom or whatever needs to live, is made in China. In China, we might not be able to get it. That's what it means. That's exactly what it means. The reason you don't have masks is because they're made in China, and China stopped allowing export of masks, right? And all these, like Australia now is like, I saw an article in an Australian newspaper a few days ago threatening people 7 years in prison for smuggling hand sanitizer.
Actually, Japan has something similar too. For it's actually not stealing or anything, but like selling the masks that you bought. If you do that, you get charged.
Yeah, we call it. Well, I mean, those sorts of things happening all the time. Like, I grew up in Florida. We have a lot of hurricanes. You guys get typhoons, and you live in South Japan, so you know exactly what you get. Typhoons come through there, right? But you know, and the stores go out, and then people jack up the prices and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Actually, there's an economic argument that, and only in the last recent years, I actually believe there's merit to the argument. There is sound economic argument that you should not price control, even during, especially during a time like this. And the argument goes like this. Well, there's different parts of the argument, and it's actually quite sound. For instance, I've always had my own mask because it was cheap anyway, and I bought them super cheap, and I'm like, these things will last. I bought them once, and now, you know, I've got them. And so because sooner or later something's probably going to happen.
Yeah.
And so I got them. And so but now if I knew that in the future I might be able to sell these at $10 each, right? Well, and I'd be like, well, I can buy them today for, I don't know, $1 each, right? Because I'm not going to buy it. Let's say I buy, whatever number of them at $1 each, knowing I can sell them later. Well, that gives me the incentive to rent a warehouse or put them in my garage and stockpile them. Now, nobody else had to do that, knowing you'll be able to get the mask later. They're going to be at a much higher price because I locked up my money in those masks, right? And so when you think about it in that regard, it can incentivize people to stockpile certain things, knowing that they can sell it at a higher price later, but everybody still has them. And people go, yeah, but the poor people can't get them. It's like, well, the poor people can't get them anyway if they're not there, right? It's like nobody gets them. And and furthermore, for instance, smuggling. Who's going to smuggle masks? And smugglers smuggle to make money, right? And so if you need masks, and everybody knows, hey, these are $10 each. If I can get these masks from China over to Japan, these are paying. I'll do it. You know what I mean? Because I can bring 1 million masks over and make, $9 million bucks, So now you've got 1 million masks. So, or I can drive them all the way to California, from Florida or whatever. Otherwise, who's going to do it? Who's going to, oh, somebody over there needs masks. But am I going to drive all the way and do it? No. So there's a sound argument for that. Although emotionally, it makes Americans as upset as it makes Japanese and Thais. Everybody's like, those dirty, we should hang them all, now $20 a gallon, because it makes you emotionally angry. And like, I'll never shop at that store again. Oh, many businesses in Florida have gone out of business from scalping, and so because they'll scalp during a hurricane or whatever. Maybe they moved to Florida and they've never been through a hurricane before, and they open their little store, like people from other countries open stores, like Indians or whatever, and they're not used to our culture, like how angry we will be with them, and then nobody shops at the store. They're like, I'll buy it from you today, but that's the last time. I used to buy from you like 4 times a week. And when this is over, I'm never stopping in here again, And, so I don't know. There's sound arguments though, economic arguments to allow the market to set its own level.
Prime Minister Abe, by the way,
what's that?
Our Prime Minister, by the way, said that he wants to bring back our production from China to Japan, like domestically.
This is going to kill CCP.
Yeah.
The United States does this.
But not anything realistic though, just announced. Just like no numbers or anything.
When did he say it?
Today, I think. But the fundamental idea came out a little while ago, like a few days ago, maybe.
It should have come out like 20 years ago.
Actually, right?
Japan have been saying that all the time. I communicate with conservative Japanese like every single day, right? Look, when I do my live feed, you'll see a lot of Japanese come on, but they're posting in English. But you can see they're like Japanese totally names. You know what I mean? Like, they're totally Japanese. They'll be like, hello from Japan, or their name is actually written in Japanese. But I mean, so I communicate with Japanese, like either with you or others 7 days a week, right? And people like you with common sense who realize we have to defend Japan. And I want you to, as an American, I want you to defend Japan. I want UK to defend itself. What good are a bunch of weak friends? You know what I mean? You don't want weak friends. You want strong friends. You know what I mean? Because listen, none of us can stand up to China alone, or we can stand up to them, but we can't beat them alone. But together, there is no chance. China has no against the United States, Japan, and the rest of the crew. All we have to do is stand shoulder to shoulder, and China will be like, hey man, this is the parking lot's full. You know what I mean? In the Chinese Communist Party. And Japan can't break China, but you can do a huge part. We can't break it, but we can do a huge part. I think just Japan and the United States could do it. Just us two, even if nobody else can. But it's going to take at least us two, or that But at this point, I'm not even sure it matters because the commie virus is working its magic, and it's black magic. It's very black magic, but it's and we're all going to pay for it. But at the end of the day, the Chinese Communist Party betting on whether or not it will be gone. What's your bet?
I think that they will collapse sometime soon, but by soon I don't know when. But
yeah, I'm not going to put a date on it. I don't think they're going to survive this.
It's like, but it's coming soon. I feel that the citizens, like once the Chinese people inside of China get angry and show their frustration, it can go like in the world.
Oh yeah. And you know how Chinese are when they get angry, man. They're uncontrollable.
Yeah, really aggressive.
Like they're completely uncontrollable. Yeah. You know, they don't have the social.
Every time China collapses like that, like from the citizens, like in the rural area and so on. So.
Oh yeah, they don't have the social discipline that Japanese have at all. I think they just don't have it. Period. And you can see it on little actions every day, like the other day on the Thai airline with the Chinese lady coughing. I mean, that's just a little thing there, but you and I know because we watch China. That's like okay, multiply that by like 1 billion. That's what it really is. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like if you're just walking by, you're like, oh, that's just one. We all have knuckleheads. You're like, oh no, it's much bigger than. Is much bigger. Right. And again, once they're angry, and they are angry, and we need to make sure Japan and the United States need to make sure that the Chinese people realize that we're not in a fight against Chinese people at all. Yeah. We are some of us, you and I, we are in an existential fight with CCP to destroy it, like utterly wipe it out. In
particular.
There's a reason I just spent 6 months in Hong Kong. You know what I mean? Taking chances and getting shot with those rubber bullets and crap. I mean, it's because I'm there to win. You know, I'm there. Winning means Chinese Communist Party is dead.
Yeah,
it's just gone. No, but where we get with this depends on so many different factors. I know I got my corner covered, and you got your corner covered. You know, you and I and many others, there's a lot more than just you and me. There's a lot and our numbers are now increasing. Remember when we were lonely? You know, it's like, and now all of a sudden we're like looking at this big snowball, like, wow.
You too.
Yeah. We were, and it was a really tiny one that we were, and people would be like, oh, you're crazy. What are you thinking about China all the time for? I'm like,
I told you.
Because I'm here to kill the Chinese Communist Party the way Reagan and others helped kill the Soviet Union, and I know we can do it. And actually, we're finally in a position to do it, to lop off their head.
Yes.
And when we pull out our factories and whatnot, what are they going to have left? I mean, how are they going to build these islands, the BRI? How are they going to build the aircraft carriers? How are they going to build space weapons and all these sorts of things when and continue to do intellectual property theft of any intellectual property theft doesn't do them a lot of good if they can't make stuff from it that we buy, right? You know what I mean? It's like you know, we were doing fine before China rose up. Remember that? You know what I mean? It's like we were doing really, you know, America had people walking around up on the moon when Chinese literally were doing cannibalism, like literally. So it's like we were already doing stuff without them, and so was Japan. Yeah, we were fine without them, and we don't need them in the future.
Our technology was awesome.
What's that?
Well, our technology was great without them.
Oh yeah, it's like if I see something that's made in Japan, I'm like, oh, it's got to be quality, right?
Yeah.
I put on my live stream a couple times these can openers I bought. And have you seen me talk about can openers?
No.
Can openers, you know, because all this stuff comes from China here in Thailand, right? So it's hard to get quality stuff because they buy a bunch of Chinese stuff, right? And so I'd been through 8 or 10 different can openers, 8 or 10, right? So one day I've got them here on my desk, and I've got them in front. I was like, see, this one doesn't work. Doesn't work. You know, doesn't work. And it's like, That's like 8 right there, and then there's a couple more I think I've already gotten rid of. And I'm like, and people are like, "Why do you keep those?" I'm like, "I don't know, mementos." But when you add up the price of all those that didn't work, and finally I'm like, I gotta get a Japanese can opener or an American can opener or a Swiss can opener or something. I can't deal with Japanese with Chinese can openers. It's either got to be German, Japanese, Swiss, American. Finally, I got KitchenAid, right? It was $20. I had to order it on Amazon, $19.99. I ordered it from Amazon, and then I got it, and now it opens up the cans just smooth. It's a can opener, man. They can't even make a can opener, but you know it's a big deal because you're like, you won't believe how much time you spend just trying.
True.
There's that old saying, "Expensive is cheap, and cheap is expensive." Right? And that scale. This is that idea on the can opener level. We need to take out China, not China, but the Chinese Communist Party, like our drugs. Have killed so many people. I don't know how many they've killed in Japan or even in America, but they've killed a lot of people in America. Like one drug that was used during dialysis, actually. And what was the name of that drug? Anyway, and so the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, they're the ones that can inspect factories, right? What's it called in Japan? What's your FDA called?
FDA?
We have an FDA, Food and Drug Administration. I know you have one too.
Yeah, but I can't think of the name.
They're the ones that can come and inspect. Like if somebody's manufacturing a pharmaceutical in Japan or foods, they can just come up and inspect.
Now I know, but I don't know the English name.
We have FDA, right? And they have a lot of power. Like if the FDA comes up to your business and says, "We're the FDA, we're here to inspect your business." You can't say, "Hey, we're having a board meeting and you'll have to come back tomorrow." They'll be like, you know what I mean? You can tell the FBI to come back tomorrow, but you can't tell the FDA or the EPA to come back tomorrow. You know what I mean? We're coming in right now, or you'll be in jail today. You know what I mean? Like, it's that simple. And that's the way it needs to be. Otherwise, they poison us with all their crap. That's the reason they have so much power, because they've killed so many people. But China limits the number of visas that our FDA inspectors get, and you have to schedule appointments, and they only let them come in for limited lengths of time. I'm like, you're kidding me. Over 80% of our pharmaceuticals come from China, and our FDA can't even inspect as much as a restaurant inspector can inspect in the United States. You know what? Like, I don't know how it is in Japan, but it's probably very similar to America. But our various health authorities have extreme power. They have you have no idea probably how much power they have. You know what I mean? Like a health inspector can come in and shut down Atlanta airport. And I'm not like, local health inspector can go, "This is the site of something. Shut it down." And be like, "What? Shut down Atlanta airport, one of the busiest international airports in the world." They have the power. They can literally, they can be overridden, but it's very, very difficult. And it takes, the airport will be shut down. I mean, if a health authority comes in and says, "I'm shutting this down." And the thing is our health authorities around America in different states and at different levels have this level of power in their jurisdictions, right? And then there's, there's state level as well. And then there's federal level, right? But so if somebody, it's interesting that if some local level person in Atlanta wanted to shut down international travel to Atlanta, there's a lot of ways to do it. Okay, all hotels are shut. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? All the, everything that I can shut is now shut, which would be a considerable amount of stuff. And they could just so in other words, it actually could be done at local levels. I don't know about Japan, but they don't exercise that authority a lot for obvious reasons. But they do exercise it. And actually, I'm not against it actually at all. They know they'll be held responsible if they did it for any other reason that was like, if they did it for some corruption reason or something, you know what I mean? Like, "Hey, I'm gonna out this business by not making it off limits." Well, and then
in Japan, I don't think that they do it that way. That we don't want to do anything extraordinary. So
mostly, within the United States too, you don't want to be the one that comes in and shuts down, something crucial infrastructure without a really, really, really good reason. I mean, but see, that's where you come into these difficult situations. What do? What if you are the health inspector and you're like, wait a minute, if this is what I think it is, and I don't stop it now, I could be responsible for killing hundreds of thousands of people by not doing anything. Or if I do something and quarantine all this, hey, this city's electricity is going to go out. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, I'm just making that hypothetical. And so I empathize with President Trump and his very serious predicament here on shutting down international travel, because then you've got this other thing happening, which is the economy. This is part of the equation, right? And so there's different parts of this triangle. One is the virus itself. Another is the economy, and finance, and then another is our medical system, which they all playing together.
Right.
And the medical, if we overwhelm our hospital resources, then, well, I mean, the case fatality for this particular virus will skyrocket, and then fatalities for so many other things will skyrocket, like car accidents. I mean, if you just can't get treatment, triage, you know. So I hope Japan flattens the curve so that it never overwhelms the Japanese system.
Yeah, I think Japanese people are highly aware of that, so people are not getting tested.
If you stay home and you've already gone out and done a lot of shopping, another thing about buying a lot of food in advance is you don't stress the system. You don't stress the system at all, because you got it when everything was good, and so nobody even notices because you haven't stressed this. It's fine. The grocery store loves it. You just bought a bunch of their food, which means you're probably more than you should. But at the same time, then you don't have to go shopping as often either. You don't have to go shopping every 3 or 4. Some people shop eat like day-to-day eating.
That's what we do. Like me and my husband.
A lot of Thais do that too. And when you live in Thailand, you're very tempted to do that because food is so good, so readily available, right? And so a lot of Thais don't have more than a few days of food supply, right? And I have a Russian friend and she's been asking me, you know, she's like, but I never have more than like 1 or 2 days of food because I just buy it. I'm like, okay, this is different rules. All right, Russian friend, pay attention. Go out and buy all the food that you can afford right now, at least a month supply, bare minimum 1 month supply, and have the ability to cook it. Have the ability, like if you don't have a butane, just assume your electricity is going to go out. And if it doesn't, that's a great bonus, because there's a chance that it won't. If it does, you need the ability to cook. You need the ability to do all these things. So make sure you got a little gas stove. They're super cheap. And have candles, and you can have romantic candle light with dinner with your husband. Like, look, we're prepared. We got candles, you know, and have the ability to store a lot of water, right? And have to filter that water. I have my own water filters here somewhere. You know, and it's very important. And it's not just for this. I mean, even if you don't eat food, none of it's going to go to waste. You're going to need it when the typhoon comes anyway.
True.
And then here comes an earthquake. Boom. And these things don't come in series. They come in, you know, like it's not like an earthquake's going to wait in line until this virus is cleared. All the little humans are facing the virus now. We better not have any earthquake for a year. It's like, no, it'd be like Murphy's Law. You know, they're having a bad virus. Let's have an 8.5 earthquake right now. The hospitals are already full. And the stores are already empty, and then
the worst can happen.
And does Murphy? You know what year Murphy was born? Ed Murphy was born in 1918, in which, you know, Spanish flu. You know Murphy's Law, right? And so
I've heard of it.
The guy that came up with that is called Ed Murphy. He was born in 1918, the year of the Spanish flu that was at its peak. Anyway, I just ran all night.
We've been talking for 2 hours now. or
actually,
you've been talking, I've said.
I'm sorry, I'm talking too much.
No, it's okay. I wanted to have you on this channel. Yeah, what's that? The coffee?
Oh, it's coffee, from Aka Coffee from that Hill Tribe. Hill Tribe used to raise opium. Actually, they still raise opium.
Oh.
Like I met an Aka lady not long ago, and I was like, "Oh, you're Aka. You still raise opium?" And she's like, "How did you know?" And I'm like, "Well, just reasons." And
Reasons.
like, here, and she's like, "Here, let me show you." And she started showing me pictures of opium on poppies on her phone. She's like, "Yeah, this is my village." I'm like, "You're showing me opium you're growing. You go to prison for that." She's like, "Yeah, but you're Farang. You're not like white person foreign. You're not going to do anything." I'm not, but I like your coffee. Why don't you stop raising opium and start raising coffee? I'll drink your coffee, but I'm not buying your opium.
Interesting.
Anyway, let's call it a night.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being on this. Like, it's my first time, so I don't know. I don't know the delivery or anything, but I was really happy to have you here because you're such a famous person with all these books and everything, and it's really my honor to be friends with you. So thank you again.
Just tell me when. We'll come on anytime.
Yeah.
And send me a link when you put this up, and then I'll or is it up? Is it live now? I don't even know.
Is it live? It is live.
Oh, was anybody sending chats? I didn't see any chats.
Oh, really? On the right side, you should have.
Oh, there are a lot of chats. Oh,
I should have told you.
There was one I see one in English. China is trying to get rid of the responsibility. Hey, Benson. But the rest are, and then Benson again. The statistic of China is fake. Oh, yeah, for sure. And then let's see another one. Haha, 79. Japanese people's enemies are pro-China politicians and our finance ministry. And then Benson again. Who is controlled by China? Oh, clearly. And Eduardo. Hello, Yoko. I'm not Yoko, but hello.
Hello.
Welfare. Yeah. Oh, we should have been answering questions if we could.
Yeah. Sorry. I didn't know how to. Like.
Yeah. Let's see. All right. Well, I tell you what.
Maybe next time.
I'm sorry about that. I didn't even know there was questions coming up. Oh, Justin says, funny, my girlfriend is Filipino. Did what I say
yeah, because you were talking about Filipino.
yeah, I figured that's what he's talking. What a speedball. I don't know what he means by that.
I can actually put up a comment, I think, like this. Do you see that?
Yeah. Cool. Great show. Thank you both. Oh, thanks, Eric Pug. I love your dog, man. You got a pug at home. Those things can't breathe, man. Let's see.
Guy
on more often. He's very on point and have a good. Oh, Justin, sure, man. Baumgartner. So you got a German name.
Yeah.
Sprichst du Deutsch? Yeah. Let's see. Seth Smith is saying the American posterity are those of English, Scottish, and Welsh descent, British, whose fathers and mothers and forefathers fought against King George's military to establish the sovereign state of the U.S. It's a really interesting topic. We could talk about that for hours. And actually, if you actually want to try to understand the American mentality, you actually have to understand the Scot-Irish mentality, because I would say with high confidence, I can't say it with 100%, but I would believe that the Scot-Irish culture, even though it represents maybe 13% of the people or something like that, something like that, not a lot, but I think that is the predominant culture. Not English, not German, not Norwegian, and not Irish, and not Scottish. Scot-Irish is not Scottish, and it's not Irish. It's a separate species. You know what I mean? And it's not a Scottish guy that married an Irish woman or something. You know what I mean? That's a different type of Scot-Irish. So I would have to explain it sometime, but there is a whole different species of people, and that has its own very strong culture that is called Scot-Irish, right? And it gets very confusing because people are like, oh yeah, my uncle married a Scottish woman, Scot-Irish. It's actually not exactly the same. Anyway, long story. But when Scot-Irish did come over to the United States, or came to America, Karen Haircut says the U.S. is evil. Well, I don't know about that. Every people has evil elements. That's for sure. One thing I say about the United States is we're like a a multi-headed Hindu god. I mean, we've got one face that's the most generous country in the world. You can like go to our Library of Congress for free from Japan or anywhere in the world. You can get download all of our NASA stuff for free. All of our probes, moon shots, all that stuff. You can use it for free. All that science is free. We just give it away, right? So much stuff like that. Or like so much technology that let's say GPS. You can use American GPS free. You know what I mean? Just stuff like that. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center. That's not just for Hawaii and California. You know what I mean? World. And we do all kinds of stuff that benefits the entire world, and it's exactly free except for the American taxpayers pay for it. So we got that side. We got that super generous side that Americans go out and like me going to Hong Kong and helping Hong Kongers. Of course, it's because I want to defeat the Chinese Communist Party. But at the same time, then I start liking Hong Kongers and I start helping them. Because I like I gave them a bunch of masks. I mean, that doesn't help defeat the Chinese. You know what I mean? But I like Hong Kongers, so I gave them some masks, right? And same with ties. I gave some masks. But the point is, there's that, and then there's another face that will go to war for things like I don't know, oil. You know what I mean? We'll go to war. But I mean, we need oil. I mean, actually, we don't need it as much as we used to. Well, now there's this fight between Saudi Arabia and Russia that could change it. Actually, they seem to be targeting us on the fracking, but that's a separate story. But so we got that. We've got the part that is just totally, absolutely generous, and give you the shirt off their back. And then we got another side that will come and just like kill 1 million people. You know what I mean? We got, and then we've got another side that's extremely curious, like sending out space probes like crazy. You know what I mean? Like, totally like, let's go to Mars now. And we're like, yeah, let's go, man. Star Trek, totally do it. And then we've got another side that's like, oh, hide under our covers, and it's like, so we got all these faces. We're like a Hindu god, it depends on which face you're looking at today,
Right.
But and which face they're evoking, but even during the Iraq war, you could see huge amount because I spent a lot of time in the Iraq and Afghan wars.
Actually, there's a comment here.
Hey, Kona, have strong memories of your dramatic reporting from Iraq. You're welcome. Thank you. It was that was something else, man. I was doing a lot of combat there. And, there were a huge amount of Americans that were donating stuff like Operation Iraqi Children, run by my friend Gary Sinise, the actor. Let's say other things, textbooks, that these super expensive medical textbooks. You know how much medical textbooks cost? They can cost several $100s for one of them, right? So we had doctors and everybody else and universities and private people all around the world collecting all these super expensive textbooks, and then paying for shipping entire containers, like 20-foot and 40-foot containers, and shipping those to Iraqis. So totally free, just so they can, study. So, I mean, that's just Americans helping Iraqis, you know what I mean? And there was a huge amount of stuff like that, a huge amount. It was not insignificant. I see Japanese too. Japanese will go out and live in a village for like 20 years. Japanese do it a lot. A lot of people don't realize how generous Japanese are because Japanese don't talk about it as much. Americans talk about it. But like I'm talking about it now, but Japanese would be like, yeah, we do. Like you. We do. I mean, I had to go over to Afghanistan and write about what JICA was doing, right? JICA, right? Which is like our U.S. aid, right? JICA. So I wrote an article about JICA, and you can look it up called, just look up JICA, JICA, Japanese. Oh gosh, what does it stand for? I can't even believe I don't know. But I would see JICA all over the place. See JICA in Philippines, see JICA in Myanmar, which I still call Burma. See JICA in Afghanistan, JICA everywhere, man. You guys put billions of dollars, not yen, but dollars, huge amounts, building highways for the Filipinos, just so much stuff. And doing it very smartly, actually. And that's why I was writing about JICA in Afghanistan. And so Japanese do it at the government level, like Americans do. Only you don't waste as much money as we. Although you guys do waste some money, but not as much as we do. We just shovel some more money at it, you know. But then also a lot of individual Japanese, like one was killed recently in Afghanistan, and I think famous doctor, and actually one of his friends lives here in
It's
Chiang Mai.
actually he was from here, my prefecture.
Oh, he was very famous in Afghanistan, and one of his friends. I've had dinner with a friend here a few times. One of his friends lives here. The guy's very famous. He was always out helping, the Japanese doctor, always out helping, and oh gosh, and like going and like one Japanese, what was his name? He was kidnapped by Taliban in Nangarhar, I think it was, and or was it Nangarhar? Anyway, a friend of mine, Tim Lynch, who's often on my Facebook. Tim was part of the recovery team because they appeared to this Japanese aid worker. Oh, I'm sorry, I've forgotten his name. His face is in my. I can see his face. Yeah, but he was. The Taliban came to a village and kidnapped him. Right. The villagers loved the Japanese guy so much because he had been living with them for a long time and been helping them a lot, and they loved him. The villagers were like really angry. He was like, "You stole our Japanese thing." Villagers are chasing him, right? And one of our drones could see him, right? They were following him, and the villagers were actually catching up. Our guys obviously couldn't shoot with the drone because the Japanese guy was, and I was not involved with it. I learned about all this later, but my friend Tim Lynch went out on recovery. So the Japanese man could not keep up with the kidnappers, so they shot him in the leg. Apparently, they shot him in the leg, apparently to wound him, because they thought the villagers would stop to help him, which they did. But then they proceeded to also chase down the kidnappers and kill them. Right. So it's like you killed our Japanese friend, and they killed him. And so that's how much respected Japanese are. Like I would go out in villages in Afghanistan, and you would see Japanese flags sometimes. Actually, you see Korean flags sometimes too. Koreans were out there trying to. A lot of Christian groups are trying to spread Christianity. They got kidnapped too. But the Japanese are quite well respected. Like in Afghanistan, they were, people be like, "Oh, Japanese, konnichiwa." Like, konnichiwa. You know how to say that. Because I would ask people about who helped put this well in. Oh, they like Japanese, that sort of stuff. Cool. And that's how I was 2 years in Afghanistan, right? One was just alone, not with any military, right? One was with the British, U.S. military, and a little bit with Lithuanians and Afghans a little bit, but and then the rest was alone, right? So I would go out to so many villages, and often, like, that's why I wrote about JICA. You should see the article I wrote about JICA, and the JICA people were thankful later. They said it was very accurate. I said, I hope so, because I knew you would read it, and I didn't want you to write me like a polite Japanese email, like with a correction, which mean I got something wrong. I hate you know what I mean?
Yeah, you're very careful though.
I get an allergic reaction if I get something wrong, especially if I write it. Actually, if I write something, publish something that's wrong, which is not very common, because I do actually almost get like I need a hospitalization if I publish something. It's like but they said it was accurate, actually, which made me feel good. Because I know Japanese wouldn't have said, "Oh, that was inaccurate." They would have said it in more polite terms. You know what I mean? But
right. Yeah.
I love my coffee. Is it impolite to drink coffee if Japanese readers are on?
Impolite?
Is it impolite to drink coffee? Like, no. Americans don't mind if you drink coffee when you're live streaming.
Yeah, I was drinking my water. So
Wei Sean saying 3M 7502 mask, reusable mask, just need to buy the correct filter to go with it. Yeah, hey Wei Sean, that's the filter, that's the mask I use. Yeah, and like Wei Sean said here, you can probably $77.99.74 is you can probably get that 3M filter, and it's better anyway, man. First of all, it's more cost effective too. It's more cost effective, the 3M filter. I know these don't cost as much for a single one, but my 3M is reusable, and I've already done the calculations. It's a lot cheaper. Not only is it a lot cheaper, it's a lot more comfortable. These, when you wear too long, you start to get like, oh, I want to take my mask off. In your way. But my 3M, by the way, if you're wearing one of these masks, don't put it on like this. Japanese probably know this. You need to,
bend it.
I know you guys know that, but but a lot of Americans, they put them on like this. They just with their fork like this. It doesn't right. You have to go like this, and so. But the 3M mask seals better. You know, when you put it on and seal it, and it's much more comfortable. Like you can be wearing it for like 2 hours and not even forget about it. Like sometimes I'll be like, wow, I'm still wearing this mask.
Cool.
Tell me if you can go 2 hours and forget you got this thing on. You know what I mean? You'll be remembering it like every 2 minutes. You'll be like, I got this mask on. But you put the 3M 7502 on, and it's quite more comfortable. All right. You probably need to get to bed.
Yeah, it's actually 2:40 or so. So I should get to bed. So
all right.
Yeah, thank you guys for coming. And thank you, Mike. And I'm gonna end this broadcast here. So thank you all, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Bye.